And you are listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting from the Boston Public Library as we do every Tuesday and every Friday, and we are streaming on Facebook.com/GBH News and YouTube.com/GBH News.
Hi there, Marjorie.
Hello, Jim.
And we're back at the library on Tuesday, and joining us on Tuesday is Governor Maura Healey. She'll be here for an hour of Ask the Governor. But joining us right now at the Boston Public Library is Senator Elizabeth Warren. Senator, welcome. We're glad to have you here.
Wow.
Good to be here.
Yeah. Big applause for Senator Warren.
I noticed,
That's very
Marjorie.
nice.
Thank you.
Yeah. Much more than we get, let me tell you, right now.
That ain't saying much, my friend, but go ahead.
So, I mean, obviously, first question, big news of the week, what do you make of the indictment of the president for the, what some of us would call a coup on January 6th?
I feel good about the judicial system. No one is above the law, not even a former president of the United States. And that's just the deal. And I get it that it's been slow, it's been a long time, but it was an independent investigation. 23 randomly drawn citizens listened to the evidence and voted and said, you know, we think you should bring an indictment. And we're watching it at the same time that following the January 6th insurrection, same kind of thing happened. You know, the law enforcement identified who these people were, gathered the evidence, went forward with the evidence, have had trials, and now people have actually gone to jail. In other words, there are consequences if you try to overthrow the government of the United States of America.
Speaking of going to jail, if I may, the Judge Chutkan, who we were discussing before we went on the air, she has sentenced every single January 6th defendant who's appeared before her to some jail time, including those whom prosecutors didn't ask for jail time. If Donald Trump is convicted on any of these 4 charges, should he go to jail?
Look, I want to create a lot of space around her, a lot of space around the judicial system, and I've been in this position all along. When people have asked me up to now, should an indictment be brought? I don't weigh in. I don't think I should weigh in. I think what should happen is the process itself should work. So that's where I'm going to stay on
so
this.
Another angle. Are you okay? Because there's a divide, even in the part of the world that is not crazy about Donald Trump, as to whether or not it is okay if a judge sentences a former president to jail. No, I'm serious.
Nice.
As a principal, are you okay with that?
As a principal?
Yeah, do you have any trouble?
My whole point is nobody's above the law, and that includes former presidents of the United States.
So you'd be okay with that?
Equal justice under law.
So you'd be okay with that?
I'm okay.
Okay, how about cameras in the courtroom?
Yeah, I actually think we should have cameras in the courtroom.
This courtroom?
I think in all courtrooms.
Okay.
I think it's part of today. Look, the whole idea is they're supposed to be public. And so it's like this fake version of public. It's public, but it's only a tiny little door on how you get in, and there's only so much space inside. Public today means this. Public today means it goes out over the airwaves and people can see it. So I'm a believer in cameras.
You know, we're kind of confused about this because we thought at one point that the judge herself, who's talked a lot about openness and the strong public interest in a case like this, that she could decide to open up the court to cameras. Apparently now that we're not sure that it may have to be the Supreme Court, John Roberts.
Or Congress.
Oh,
or Congress, exactly.
Yeah.
So it may not happen. And I'm just wondering if there's anything that can be done to give the American people an opportunity, you know, whether you like Trump or don't like Trump, to see this trial. It's such a big deal.
Yeah, I personally, and I'm just doing this, I don't like the fact that it gets filtered through the lenses of everybody else who had the small group that made it in the front door to see it. This is public. And part of public is I want to see it with my own eyes.
So, Senator Warren, you and Ayanna Pressley were probably the 2 biggest advocates for the broadest possible student loan forgiveness program. We all know what the Supreme Court did. It would have covered and benefited 40 million Americans. Immediately after it was struck down, Joe Biden implemented unilaterally, I know it's got to go through the regulatory process, some income-driven repayment relief thing. 40 million under the thing that was struck down by the Supreme Court, 804,000 benefited. What happens to the other 39 million?
So the answer is we're still working on it. And here's how I want to think about that. First, let's do the Supreme Court opinion. This is a case where if you already didn't believe in the United States Supreme Court because of how they've burned their own credibility over abortion, over voting rights, this one is just, and affirmative action, this one is just a gobsmacker. They don't have an actual plaintiff, which is absolutely necessary for us lawyer types, someone who's injured who comes into court. First of all, that's what they do not have, and this case never should have been there. But second, The actual words of the statute were that in a time of emergency, the president's team is authorized to modify or waive, right, student loan debt. They just ignore the actual language of the statute and decide that they should better decide what Congress should allow the president to do. They should decide it instead of Congress. However you feel about student loan debt, this is one for which watching what the court is doing is genuinely frightening. They're not just overturning old precedent. They're actually saying, we're just going to reach out and start substituting our decisions for policy decisions made by Congress, policy decisions made by the President of the United States. The whole idea of separation of powers was the Supreme Court got to kind of go last, but really narrow. Had to look at the world through a straw, right? Only could have cases in controversy. Only could have cases that were ripe. Only could have cases where there was an injured plaintiff in, and only could do it if you had a federal question, right? All the way down on this. So I just want to start there with how wrong the Supreme Court was on that. But here's the good news. President Biden still has a lot of tools in the toolbox. And so when the Supreme Court says you can't do it this way, that's all they can say on this. The question is, keep rummaging around in the toolbox, how many other tools are available here? Let me give you a little bit of good news. His administration has already canceled, done, we're finished, student loan debt for 3.4 million people. It's not that's good, that's right. It's not the 43 million that we're going to be in the broader group, but 3.4 million. It's not chopped liver. This is actually people who are getting help. It's tens of thousands of people right here in Massachusetts who've seen their debt go away. Just last week, another 7,400 people got their student loan debt canceled. So that's part one, is just keep turning over every place that there's a slice of people that you can cancel student loan debt for. Part one. Part two is he's doing what's called negotiated rulemaking. He's using another tool in the toolbox to come back and say, I'm still going to do broad relief. I'll just do it by dotting every I, crossing every T that's there in the statute. And here's the part I care so much about. He's actually getting relief out the door. The income-based repayment plans, talk about something that's been underreported on. Yeah, I want to cancel student loan debt. I want to cancel it because I think we've engaged in intergenerational theft from our young people. My daddy was a janitor. I wanted to be a public school teacher. I could do that because I could go to a four-year college on $50 a semester. Today, we tell kids to take on tens of thousands of dollars of debt to try to do the same thing, or say to them, as some people now do, just don't even try. I think that is fundamentally wrong, and we need cancellation of a huge part of the debt that's out there. But income-determined repayment plans, this is already in the statute. And finally, we have an administration that's stepping up and starting to use it. So people who try college and it doesn't work out and they don't make much money, they're not actually going to owe all that money on the other end. We're getting this system worked out. It's not perfect, not all the way there yet. But to say to people, you go into public service, you just have to pay a fraction of what you earn, and at the end of 10 years, you're done. You're just done. Whatever debt is still out there. Don't go into public service, same kind of deal, fraction. But you got to go longer, 20 years. It's a long time, but it's a modest amount of money. It's at least a step toward investing in people who are trying to invest in themselves and are not already wealthy. And I think that's something we ought to do.
You know, Senator Warren, what do you say to the people, I'm sure you hear from them all the time, who say, you know, I didn't go to college because I knew I couldn't afford it, or I went to a community college for 2 years and then I went out because I knew I couldn't afford it, or I struggled to pay back the debt that I owed, and they don't like this because they didn't get this kind of consideration.
You know, I'm really left to say, when did we become an America that says, you know, people didn't get health care when I was younger, and therefore I don't want anybody to have it now? People couldn't get an education when I was younger, so I don't want anybody to have it now. We kept poor kids, we kept kids of modest means from even having a chance. So I don't want them to have a chance right now. When did we become that America?
That's a good question. I don't know. When did we?
But I'll tell you something else about it. Investing in education for our young people is investing in America's future. This is not just, you benefit from a generous public education program. Think of it this way. When GIs returned from World War II, a grateful America said, you get an education, we're going to pay for it. And then what happened?
If you were white.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we narrowed up who got it, but watch what happened for those who were able to take advantage of it. They paid back an estimated 7-fold over the amount of benefits they got just in the higher taxes they paid, because instead of their earnings doing this, their earnings did this. And what happened to the rest of America? Our GDP shot through the roof because we had a better educated population. So for me, this is about, we invest in education, yes, because for each individual who gets a chance, each individual whose only sin is I wanted to get an education, I was born into a family that couldn't write a check for it. For each one of those people, it's a benefit, but it's a benefit for all of us. It will make us a richer nation to invest in the education of our young people.
Someone might call it infrastructure for families. You ever heard of that before?
Yeah, it's infrastructure for families.
We're talking to Elizabeth Warren.
Speaking of infrastructure for families, when you were running for president, I thought one of your most appealing policies was the idea that, and correct me if I have this wrong, but I think it was that people wouldn't have to spend anywhere than 7% of their income for child care, which I thought every parent in America should vote for this woman because people are going broke, college loans, rent, mortgage, child care, which is astronomical. That didn't happen. I think Joe Biden tried in his first bill, which American Rescue something, that didn't happen. But now you've got another plea to the President of the United States about
in all
child
fairness,
care.
there were billions of dollars in the American Rescue Plan for child care. You're worried because it's expiring.
That's
Isn't that
right.
your deal?
In fact, it is expiring now. And I'm actually pushing right now that we get a $16 billion infusion because we're going to lose child care for about 3 million children in this country. Anyone want to think about the implications of that? Not only household by household, family by family, but again, for our whole economy. You know, those little kids, you can't just strap them on your back and take them with you to work. And so I'm trying to get money right now. But back to your question, and that is, give me a Democratic Senate and Democratic House and Joe Biden back in the White House. We've got our bill ready to go. And what it says is child care, nobody in America has to spend more than 7% of their income on child care. And one more part, we're going to raise the wages of child care workers commensurate with the responsibility and the kind of work they do.
You know what's interesting to me, though? This seems to be one that should have the Republican support as well, because obviously millions of Republicans have little kids and they're grandparents of kids that are struggling. It gets nowhere, though, with the GOP. What is that about?
You know, I feel so frustrated on these things that people often talk about me and they say, oh, you're very progressive, and they talk about this long political line and, you know, this end and that end. At the end of the day, the kind of things that I'm out there fighting for, like universal child care, like better access to higher ed, like raising the minimum wage, like expanding Social Security, and taxing billionaires and billionaire corporations. I'm just naming a few here. They are really popular.
Very popular.
And they are popular. Here's the thing. They're not just popular among Democrats. They're popular among independents. And most of these are popular among a majority of Republicans want to see us do these things. And what you've got is this disconnect in the United States Senate and the House of Representatives, these elected leaders who don't reflect what the majority, even of their own party, wants to see them to do. And yet, they think their electoral future lies with fighting culture wars, with digging in and trying to demonize programs that really would help American families.
Senator Elizabeth Warren, I have a couple of questions about the Senate, and let's take one, and then I've got another. Mitch McConnell did a press availability the other day, I'm sure you've seen it, in which it appeared to me as a viewer he was having a stroke or some such thing. He went back to his office, came back, and continued speaking. Your Democratic colleague, Dianne Feinstein from California, according to news reports, was told by her staff the other day how to vote in a committee hearing. There are strong arguments, at least to me, that are made that neither of them have the ability to competently continue to serve. What's your position on McConnell and Feinstein?
Look, I hope that Mitch McConnell is okay. I hope his health is good. Same thing for Senator Feinstein. We don't have a process in the United States other than elections. And people run for election. And the voters are the one who make the choice about who will represent them. People may decide that they're not going to serve out a term, but other than that, it's up to the voters.
You don't think as a leader you have a responsibility to say, I don't think California is being adequately represented. I don't think Kentucky is being adequately represented as a national leader like you are?
I think that that is for the people of California and the people of Kentucky to
One other
decide.
Senate thing. You're working on a bill to create a commission around big tech, which the lack of regulation concerns, I think, much of America, with a guy by the name of Lindsey Graham. You're working on some bank regulation, which is sort of your bread and butter with J.D. Vance. Mm-hmm. Both of these guys are ones who think the re-election of a man who is credibly accused of trying to overturn a democratic election in this country is the right way for America to go. So this is not a policy question. It's rather a personal question. How hard is that when you know that when they're not working with you on what you care about, they're essentially trying to destroy the democracy?
I so much want to get done what we can get done over the next, we still got a year and a half, right, on this. I so much want to see us put the right tech regulations in place, so much want to see us put the right banking regulations, because it's good for the country. And so if I can find partners to work on that actually increase the odds that we can make it through a divided Senate and House, then I'm going to fight on that issue, and I keep it to that issue.
Is it hard?
It is sometimes a challenge, but it's my job. This is what I was sent to the United States Senate to do. I wasn't just sent there to disagree with people and to stand up every day and shake my fist over the things I don't like. I was sent to do what I can and get things done. And you know, you don't just get things done by talking to your friends. You don't just get things done by rounding up the people who agree with you. You get things done by persuading people who disagree with you or who usually don't listen to you. You get things done by bringing those folks in and trying to build a majority so you can get it passed through the Senate, get it passed through the House, and get it to the president's desk to get it signed.
You know, for people who don't know, what are you and J.D. Vance trying to do about banks?
So the thing we're trying to do there, you remember how the banks crashed?
Yeah.
And back up just a little bit on why they crashed. Okay, go back. 2008, we have the big crash. We put Dodd-Frank in place. And a big part of Dodd-Frank was to say those super big banks are going to have extra supervision, right? Guess what? Super big banks didn't like that. So Donald Trump actually ran for president saying to the super big banks, these so-called mega regionals, these multi-billion-dollar banks, if you get me elected president, I will weaken the banking regulations. And lo and behold, he got elected and he followed through. He put in people who were willing to play fast and loose on the banking regulations. That was not good enough. Those folks, including the CEOs of the banks that actually ultimately failed, came back to Congress, lobbied Congress, and said, weaken the rules even more. And all of the Republicans and a sizable number of Democrats went along with that. I kept saying, do not do this, do not do this. But it was a message to the CEOs. The CEOs said, ooh, have we got a deal here? Because what we can now do is that we can take incredible risks with our business. For example, SVB Bank
That's right.
dropped their interest rate hedge. they made the assumption interest rates are at historic lows, they will always be at historic lows. So they didn't pay for the hedge, boosted their profits, then paid themselves fabulous bonuses and salaries out of this, right? Then SVB collapses and the CEO says, so sorry it collapsed, but I'm keeping all my money. So what J.D. Vance's in my bill is about is to say, not so fast, bub. If you actually crash your bank, we can go back and take away these extraordinary bonuses and high salaries that you paid yourself. And the idea behind it is not just to be punitive. The idea behind it is to align incentives and say, if you make choices that put your bank in a position to blow the bank up, and it truly does blow the bank up, you're going to lose all those profits you paid yourself in the interim. That's what the bill is about.
How much are you worried about the future of democracy? I mean, just this week, Elizabeth Warren, we read 69% of Republicans in a poll believe that Joe Biden is not the legitimate president of the United States. We saw that Joe Biden, at least a moment in time, tied with Donald Trump on the eve of his third indictment, 43 to 43. I'm sure you read the Fox News poll. I'm sure you read the 300 of the MAGA people in the polls. 300 out of 300 thought that Donald Trump had done nothing wrong. Even if he loses the election, if he's the nominee, he's probably going to get 70 million votes, 80 million votes. Do you worry about the future of democracy?
Yeah, I worry a lot about it. I mean, this is really the part that 3 o'clock in the morning at my house is not a good time and good place. Because this is the part that really scares me. I'll go head to head with you on any policy you want to talk about. But we now have a major political party in the United States that has openly said the way they intend to keep power is by preventing American citizens from voting or not counting the votes that they actually cast. Think about what that means. That the way they intend to keep power is to undermine the very core of our democracy. I am so worried about where we are. Talk to the folks who study how a democracy becomes a dictatorship, and you remember the elements, right? There's a refusal to accept the outcome of an election. It's followed by violence. But here's always the key. The party that lost and engaged in the violence does not throw out the violent offenders, does not say, not us, not our party. That takes out the whole foundation on which democracy is based.
Well, it seems to me that part of the problem, Marjorie and I talk about this ad nauseum, is the Supreme Court that more often than not comes out with wildly anti-majoritarian decisions. I don't know if you're in this. Are you a court expansion person?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay. So we spent some time with Kamala Harris the other day, and we asked her, we said, Joe Biden emphatically does not support expansion of the Supreme Court. So in light of the fact that the 3 Trump justices are in their 50s, could be there for 30 years through 8 presidencies, what's the Biden plan to deal with this rogue court? I don't know if they have one. What is the plan?
So let me just make a little case here for why we should expand the court.
Sure.
And that is, understand this. I was a law professor for many, many years.
We heard.
You've heard that,
Yes.
before. The idea of messing around with the Supreme Court is something that just like frizzles my eyelashes. It's, no, we don't do that. The court stands separately and independently. But this court is an extremist court. It has burned its own credibility. It refuses to follow just basic ethics issues here. It's this court has, as you rightly say, they've taken away constitutional rights. They're aggrandizing power. So there comes a point when you say, I'm for leaving the court to itself to work through. There comes a time when it is so extremist, so far out there, it is putting our very democracy at risk. And when that happens, then you've got to think about how you pull some balance into this. Remember, we don't need a constitutional amendment to change the number of justices. The number of justices has been changed 7 times before. I believe that we need to make the change now, and we need to put in for reasonable people to pull this court
Did you ever
back
discuss
into
that with
some
Joe Biden?
balance. I'm not going to talk about any private conversations, but what I will tell you about this is when people say to me, aren't you just worried then the Republicans will get back in and then they'll add 5 and then, you'll add 12 and there'll be 190, and there'll be nobody left in America who's not on the Supreme Court. I do want to say about this, though, the first thing we got to do, if we can change the Supreme Court, already by definition, we've gotten rid of the filibuster. Because as long as the filibuster's there, we're not changing the Supreme Court, we're not doing abortion, we're not doing gun safety, but the key one, we're not doing voting rights. Because the Republicans have blocked us on even doing basic voter protection. My view is, if we get in and we actually put serious voting protection in place, then I'll go with whatever democracy does. That's all I want to see.
We know you got to go. One last Supreme Court thing, which frizzles my something or other, is when Chief Justice Roberts refused to appear before the Senate Judiciary Committee and basically said everything's fine here, what's to see? The 3 liberal justices signed on to that letter, and at least I think I'm speaking for Margie in our opinion, basically provided cover to Roberts and the other 5 conservatives. What do you think about what the 3 of them did on this ethics
Let me just
issue?
do all 9. I think all 9 are wrong. I think it is the job of the United States Congress to put rules in place for the Supreme Court. Read the Constitution. There are places in the Constitution where we set this up. How do you think they get paid? They get paid because of what we do in Congress, right? How they get that building. They get it because of what we do. We're the ones who set up things like what the scope of their jurisdiction is. So yes, we have a responsibility here, and we have a responsibility as Congress to make sure that every federal employee is following some of the same basic ethics rules. You should not be taking gifts from billionaires when you are a federal employee. Is that controversial? Holy guacamole, no. And that's what we're looking for here. It's the stuff that all of us get this. This is not right, and we know it's not right. And it's not right whether you like the decisions the Supreme Court has made or you don't like them. It is wrong, and Congress has the authority and must exercise that authority to make sure that all these federal employees, including those 9 that sit on that high bench, actually follow some basic rules of ethics.
Nice to see you, Elizabeth
Good to see
Warren.
you.
Thank you very much for coming in,
Senator
Senator Warren. We
Elizabeth
really
Warren.
appreciate it. That's the voice of Senator Elizabeth Warren. We've been speaking to her for the last 20 minutes, and we're very much grateful that she came in to talk to us today at the Boston Public Library, where we are broadcasting live right now. Thank you very much, Senator Warren. Thank you for being with us. Okay, coming up. We inspired by our conversation yesterday and how you're dealing with Trump living rent-free in all of our brains for the next 2 years. We're opening the lines up to parents or anybody who's going through how you handle the headlines with your kids. From the former president being arrested, to climate change, to mass shootings and more. How do you talk to your kids about the news in 2023? You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting from the Boston Public Library.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. You know we're on a radio. You know we're a radio show here or what? You do? Okay. Just want to make clear. Hi there. How are you?
Hi. Good.
Okay, we're broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming on Facebook.com/GBHnews, YouTube.com/GBHnews. We obviously thank the senator for her time today. Tuesday at the library, the governor will be here 12 to 1. Maura Healey will be taking your questions and ours. You know, partly inspired by a headline in the Washington Post today. The headline is "Learning How to Parent in a World I Cannot Control." We're opening it up to parents and grandparents today. July was the hottest month ever on record. Climate change moves from a hypothetical tomorrow to a real daily threat. It seems like every week there's another story involving the collapse of our democratic norms, from increasingly violent rhetoric to the latest in the Trump saga. And not to pile on, there have been more than 400 mass shootings so far in 2023. The rise in legislation targeting LGBTQ kids, banning books, Florida's governor thinking slavery was a job training program, on and on. It's all on the table. How are you navigating all this with your kids? And what do they know about this? What do you say to them? Do you ignore it all? Or do you even lie because you can't figure out a way to communicate what's happening very close to them in the world around them? Give us a call or a text, 877-301-8970. You subscribe to the lie school of certain things, do you not?
Well, that sounds terrible. The
Well,
lie
I didn't mean it that way. You know what I mean.
things. No, what happened is I years ago read this piece about children in the Blitz in Great Britain when
you told me about this.
People were going down in the basements every night as the Germans were coming over and dropping bombs everywhere. And of course, you were facing a situation where you might be dead or severely injured in any second. And it talked about how parents that tried to play card games with their children or told them that everything was going to be okay, that mommy and daddy are here and you're going to get through this, fared so much better psychologically than parents who cried and got upset and shuddered at every bomb blast that they heard. So it's a different world today because when my kids were little, my kids are in the 20s and 30s, my kids were little, there wasn't the internet like there is today. But it seems to me that to always say, Mom and Dad are here, we'll keep you safe. Your school is probably not going to be the one where the shooter shows up, that kind of thing.
So what do you say to, let's say, 6 or 7 year old when you try to thread the needle, if that's the right impression, saying something like you should have respect for the office of the presidency, but not somebody who uses those powers in the way this guy... Is a kid going to understand that? Or
I don't think you have to get that.
So what do you say? Tell yesterday's news. The kid comes home, sees Donald Trump, who he or she thinks was the former president. He's leaving a courthouse. He's got an umbrella, talking about how horrible things are in Florida.
I don't have a difficult time with this one.
What do you say?
He's a very bad man. He's done a lot of very bad things. You should have faith in the United States of America court judicial system, and we're hoping he's going to be found guilty and maybe even go to jail.
Like that. Okay, 877-301-8970.
Climate change is
Jamie,
a tough
I need
one.
a link, by the way, for text. Jamie, please, if you don't mind. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Climate change is a tough one.
What do you say about that?
That's a tougher one. I don't know. I didn't have to talk about this with my kids when they were little because it was different. But that's a tough one because we are not doing nearly enough. And you saw what happened this summer. There was a story.
I have an answer to that. I have a simple one.
What's
you say, it's possible our house won't be in the ocean for years. You basically do the positive side of all these kinds of things.
Let's all go to Home Depot and get gas masks and everything will be fine.
No, I'm serious. What do you say? They see the smoke in the air from the Canadian fires.
Right.
What do you do about that?
Well, in the story that we read in preparation for talking about this, talked about how you take actions within your own family. You talk about how you're recycling to help out, how you're composting to help out, how you're going to get a hybrid or an electric car to help out, what you're going to do in your local area. You tell kids to get involved, write letters to the local paper. The problem is there are so few local papers left to write letters to, but that kind of thing, that you want to talk about this as a serious problem and we're doing everything we can to help, even though we're not doing everything we can to help. So it makes it much more difficult, I think, because we're not handling it.
No, by the way, you go ahead.
I'm just going to say, that's one of the things that's so upsetting about Trump and what Elizabeth Warren just said about, and I don't mean to always dump on Republicans. I mean, normal Republicans are one thing. The people we have in there now are not normal Republicans for the most part. Is that you have a sense that the one great thing about this country is that, back in World War II, with, Churchill talking about this, that Americans will twist and turn, I'm paraphrasing, and hem and haw and be dragged in, but they'll finally do the right thing. that's what we don't have anymore,
I know.
the sense that we will finally do the right thing because we're doing so many wrong things now. So it's more difficult.
Well, it's not just presidents, it's Supreme Court justices.
Supreme Court, and it's the people that are spreading lies, that, like Kevin McCarthy, that they know are lies and they spread them anyway.
877-301-8970. So what do you say to your kids about difficult current events, from climate to mass shootings, including of children and sometimes in schools, to what's happening to a former president of the United States as we speak? 877-301-8970 is the number.
Here's a text. I have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old. We tell them the truth but omit graphic details. They know the Orange Man was a terrible president, and that is probably one of our favorite parent wins.
The Orange Man. Is that what they said?
Yeah,
the Orange Man.
I think they're
Where are we
talking
going
about
back there in Brighton, please? Who should we take first on this list here?
Art from Bridgewater says, no wonder lib kids are neurotic. Say 8 words. Oh, Art, I hope this isn't really what you said.
You're the one who read it.
Suck it up, buttercup. This too shall pass.
I mean, that is moronic. We like you, but I mean, really, Derek and Weymouth, you're first on Boston Public Radio. Hey there.
Oh, hi. I'm driving all the time and listening to you guys all the time.
Thank you.
Sometimes the kids are in the car a lot.
Oh.
I told my son about Donald Trump on this morning, and he said, well, bad. And I pressed him for specifics. He's like, I don't remember. But then I asked him about climate. He said, Antarctica is going to get unfreezed, I think is what he said.
Wow.
And I said, well, what happens then? He said, well, the world dies.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh.
I was like, wow, okay. He's got his head wrapped around that one at least.
How old's the kid, Derek?
8 and 10.
So what do you do after the world dies? What's the follow-up from the father?
Well, I mean, the follow-up for me is the world's actually going to be fine. It's just our place in it that might be in question, I think.
And is that comforting to an 8 or 10-year-old?
I don't think he's particularly worried about it. His little world out here, he's doing his thing. And
Okay.
yeah.
Well, you're being straight with the kid, and I admire that, actually. I'm not sure I would be. Derek, thank you for the call, and of course, thank you for listening. We really appreciate it.
Darcy's got a good one.
What's that?
Have you heard DeSantis' latest in New Hampshire this week? He promised that on day one of his administration, federal bureaucrats will have their throats
slit their throats.
How do I explain that to the children? That's a very good question, Darcy. I really don't know, except to tell your children he will not get to the administration in Washington, D.C., so you don't have to worry about it.
Well, you keep saying that, Margaret. That's not really good enough, as far as I'm concerned, because I don't think you're doing the vote counting. So
I'm not doing the vote counting,
He may.
but Jim, he's not going to be elected president.
I know I said this. One of the things I find most offensive is this thing where in modern American politics, particularly in the Republican Party, the goal is to be the toughest, cruelest candidate you can, use language that's foul and cruel. And I mean, it is really the disintegration of decency and civility. It's really staggering. 877-301-8970. We're asking, what do you say to your kids or grandkids or whomever about the travails that are more than just travails that are all around us? We need a little quicker help out of Brighton, please, in terms of the calls.
Here's a text here. My kids are 14 and 15. They seem to understand more than I thought. It's super sad because they see the United States as falling apart.
Maddie in Watertown, thank you for the call. Welcome. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Great.
So I don't have children. I'm just reminded of when my grandfather made me watch Nixon's resignation.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was 9 or 10.
Yeah.
And I did not want to, as a child, could care less. He's like, oh, you'll never see anything like this again. So, of course, I think of him all the time now. Mm. And it was important, though, because now I have much more understanding, and I think that we don't teach civics in school, that we have a real need to at least show our children, like, the past, what's happening now. It doesn't have to be graphic. I don't know. But you have to kind of be honest.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that, even though the honesty thing, it sounds like your father maneuvered or grandfather maneuvered it well. I'm not sure if my kids were young. I remember thank you, Maddie, my younger daughter, it just occurred to me, I can't believe I hadn't thought of this, walked in what year was Monica Lewinsky?
Oh, so I don't know, 94, 95, 96.
Okay, so she was
like
roughly 4 years old, 5 years old. You know my younger daughter,
Yep.
who's pretty attuned to the news, even at a ripe old age. She walks into the living room, my wife's watching television, and she turns to her and she says, "What did he do?" That would be. What do you say to the 4-year-old about what he did?
Well, that was a great moment. Remember all the people talking about confusion among their teens about what sex
well,
is?
exactly. I forgot about that.
Well, Bill Clinton said it wasn't sex.
I did
so,
not have
mean,
sex with
maybe
that
this isn't
woman,
a
Monica
problem.
Lewinsky.
Yeah, there was a lot of talk about that. at the time.
877-301-8970.
Here's another text. This is the new normal for kids. They are growing up in a world of forest fires and summers that are too hot to be outside. They should be told that the world is beautiful and needs to be cared for. That's from John in Vermont.
I like that.
And that has been a thing this summer where you think of all these kids are out of school, but they can't go outside really. Not here.
Some
We haven't
days.
it hasn't been quite as bad here, but these places where it's 110
Phoenix,
degrees.
right, of course.
You can't go out and play.
Or
You
where the
can't-
Canadian fire smoke
or you can't go to
makes
the
the air
playground.
unsafe.
And in New York City, remember earlier this summer, it might have been back in June actually, when there were all those pictures out of New York City as the air like brown
see
and
it, I know.
orange, and people it was dark in the middle of the day. I mean, that was really pretty bad. You know what else I think is a weird thing for kids today is that you kind of thought place was secure. There might be
That's a wonderful
there might
point.
be a hurricane or there might be an earthquake or something, but it probably wasn't going to happen to you. So this house is our grandpa's house. These houses are going to be there. These places are going to be there. These beaches are going to be there. These mountains are going to be there, and that's not true anymore. We're talking. We didn't get a chance to talk about Elizabeth Warren, but down in New Bedford, they're having to raise the pier down there, like feet above the water, because of fear of climate change. So the things that you thought were going to last
That had permanence. They're not.
do not.
Laura in Connecticut, you're on Boston Public Radio with Marjorie Egan and me, Jim Browdy. Thanks for calling. Hi.
Hi, good morning.
Hey.
I agree with Marjorie that it's so important for parents to stay calm and help reassure their children that whatever happens, we can help get through it, we can handle it. As you were talking, I wanted to call in and say that I decided to homeschool my kids because of, in part, the political
Really?
climate and worries about school violence. I feel like it gives me the chance to spend more time with them and help them interpret the things that they're seeing and hearing around them. Growing up, I had the impression that homeschooling was a way to keep kids from being exposed to things, but these days I feel like it's a way to ensure that your kids are exposed to things in an era of banned books and, conversations that can't be had in schools. So
Laura,
that's
before you go
my
away,
family made.
I used to have a horrible attitude about homeschooling, a horrible bias against it, until rational, kind people like you would call the show and explain your reasons and that sort of thing. But how do you know what the hell you're doing? I mean, how hard? I'm serious. How hard is this?
So I was a teacher previously. so that helps.
Okay.
But in the internet age, there are so many resources and community groups that I really have found it to be much easier than I expected.
Okay. Well, good for you if it works for your kids and your family. Laura, thank you for your call. We appreciate it.
Mary from Cambridge says we should not forget the police shootings of black kids, and that's obviously a big trauma if when you're worried if you've got a black son about being pulled over by the cops and having things go crazy. I mean, that is a really difficult thing. When we talked about having the talk with your kids, a lot of black parents talk about that, having to make sure that keep your hands on the steering wheel, don't make any fast actions. I mean, that's pretty horrible to have to do that deal with that expectation that you're.
Do you remember
your
when
child-
Mayor de Blasio in New York City, whose kids are biracial, talked about having the conversation with his kids about how police treat black kids and how nuts the police went in New York City, even though the facts obviously murdered the conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is this is from Becky from Fenway says, "Oh, how do I long for the good old days when my kid would ask, 'What is toe cleavage?' when he was in the car and we had GBH on. What you want to explain what toe cleavage is?"
It was from Marjorie's favorite columnist of all time is Diane White, who's no longer at the Globe, and she wrote this beautiful piece about toe cleavage, which is...
Well, it's the number of toes that you should expose in your open-toed shoes in the summer. And her theory was it should only be your big toe and your second toe because that is the most attractive angle at which to look at your toes. Like today, I have too many toes showing. It's very, very bad.
By the way, and that's fine to discuss with your kid because it's only about eroticism. That's fine to discuss with your young children. We got to take a break, Marjorie.
Okay, we're talking about what you tell your kids in these days when the news is pretty bad on a whole lot of fronts. Numbers 877-301-8970, 877-301-8970. Do you try to tell them the truth, or do you lie? We're broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library. We're streaming on Facebook.com/GBH News and YouTube.com/GBH News.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie. And we're live at the Boston Public Library. And we're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, facebook.com/GBH News. We're at the library again on Tuesday. The governor will be with us for an hour, 12 to 1. Maura Healey. If you're just joining us, we're talking about parenting in an increasingly difficult world. Climate change, threats to democracy. Well, Trump, that's sort of subsumed there. The ongoing saga of, the war in Ukraine. I mean, everything. You know what I'm talking about. How do you talk to your kids? 877-301-8970. Apparently, there's a text you want to read.
Well, we have some excellent texts.
What are
I'm
they?
going to read a couple of them. Okay, we have where to go? Oh, we have told our kids now, 18 and 15, from a young age, that family, friends, and community do whatever we can to change things that need changing.
Oh, that's
but we
pretty
have
good.
we have an LGBTQ kid, and have also told them we will leave the United States if we need to, and we're looking at countries that actively address climate change and that are welcoming of LGBTQ kids. Robin Lowell says, I tell my grandkids we live in a good state, even though our legislators take 5-month vacations, can't pass a budget on time, can't pass important bills because they can't agree on simple protocols, and won't let us know what they are doing. But
well, here's an anonymous texter that may make you happy. This person says, my 2-year-old listens to GBH in the car daily. He always says, no Jim, Mama. Apparently, he prefers Marjorie's
That's
voice.
right. Your child has very good taste.
Speaking of my
Whoever texted
kids,
that.
my older kid, it just occurred to me, walked into the room one day, and I was on TV doing Greater Boston. I remember as Mimi, she said, no, Daddy, watch Rogers. That's what she called Mr. Rogers. Exactly. Carol in Waltham, you're next on Boston Public Radio. We're talking about how do people parent in the age of everything falling apart. Hi, Carol.
Hi.
Hi.
Jimmy Marjorie. I have to tell you a funny story. The other
Please.
day, I'm taking my grandchildren in from a T-ball, and I turn on your show. And my grandchild, who was 5 in the back seat, screams, oh, they're talking about Trump. Turn it off. He's a bad man. He's going to jail.
How old is this kid?
5.
5.
Oh, my God. So
Now,
what'd you say?
I have to be honest with you. I'm an independent, and I tend more to the conservative
That's
point
perfectly
of view.
fine. So what'd you say to your grandkid?
And I said to my grandkid, you can't do that. You can't say those things. There are some people who like him, and some people who don't. And you don't understand everything that's going on. Now, obviously, she heard this from her mother, which is fine, and everybody has their own point of view.
Of course.
And it's funny how impressionable children are, because I babysit for a biracial family. And the other day, we're driving down the street, and the child in the back seat, who is now 6, says to me, Black Lives Matter. And I say to her, well, Grace, all lives matter. It doesn't matter. Everybody. No, 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 that's not what I heard in school. And this upsets me because I don't want children to be disrespectful of each other, and I don't want them to dislike each other.
But Carol,
And I'm worried
even though
about
that's not our topic today, you know, those who say Black Lives Matter, they're not suggesting that's all that matters. They're suggesting those are lives which have been horribly undervalued through the history of this country, and maybe it's about time to focus on those lives. Get it? It's not anti-anybody. Having said that, Carol, thank you much for your call, and hi to your grandkids and to your kids you sit for. By the way, here's another one. Jamie, who's our lead producer, says, when my son is at my in-laws and they're listening to Boston Public Radio, he hears Jim's voice, this seems to be a theme, and he says, that's Papa's boss. What is she? I mean, Chop, what does he say when he hears Marjorie?
He starts applauding, I guess.
Applauding,
He
right.
starts applauding. That's what he does.
Are you troubled by the fact, by the way, we read a poll this morning in preparation for this, only 17% of public school teachers in America who answered a survey from somebody said they told their kids about the whole thing with Stormy Daniels. Now, that was the first time a president of the United States
Correct.
was criminally...
But I can see where they were in difficult waters there. Because
There's difficult
she was a
waters.
former porn star. I mean, you know, I can see where a teacher might be nervous about talking about a porn star in second grade. You know
5
what I
out
mean?
of 6. Well, you know, I mean, there's a way to cast it, it seems. That's a pretty important time and a pretty... And by the way, you know what we haven't said here?
What?
If the teacher or the parent doesn't say something, I don't care how old the kid is, he or she or they are going to find out what the hell is going on independently, and probably not in a way that's very healthy and helpful.
Well, the internet has changed everything, but I don't know why you would let your kids watch the news when they're little.
No, but they pick it up in travels.
Well,
and
they might.
The radio's on for a minute.
Yeah,
they hear it
I
in
guess.
school.
But you know, I don't know. I think the news is mostly upsetting, and maybe when they're little, they don't have to face it for a while.
This is a good one. Andy, you only have 30 seconds, but it's a good call. Tell us. Andy. 25.
hi.
Go ahead.
Hi,
Take it
Andy.
away. 25 seconds.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Go.
Hello? Okay. I am on my way to Vermont, actually, to visit my 29-year-old son. But what I called about was that when they were younger, and even now, my answer to them is vote. My answer to them is, if you're not happy about something, you have an opportunity to change it. And the way you do that is you vote. I always took them to the polls with me when they were little,
That's like-
when
I
I
love
was
that.
voting. And I sat them up on the tabletop, and they watched me vote. And they said, what are you doing? And I'd explain it.
Andy,
And, even now,
Andy, I'm only interrupting you because we're out of time. We're up
But
against
thanks
a
for
hard
saying
out.
that.
But thank you. That was a great call, and have a great time up in Vermont. Okay, coming up after the new news, live Music Friday on Boston Public Radio. Zoe Sparks is here ahead of Zoopocalypse, a 2-day music festival featuring some of the Northeast's finest up-and-coming musicians. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at facebook.com/GBH News and youtube.com/GBH News. Houston Browdy, I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. We are broadcasting live as we do every Tuesday and every Friday from the Boston Public Library, and we are streaming on Facebook.com/GBH News and YouTube.com/GBH News. Tuesday, right here at the Boston Public Library, we'll be joined by Governor Maura Healey from 12 to 1. You'll be able to ask her your questions here, online, or on the phone.
A couple more things, speaking of politicians. A bunch of you missed Elizabeth Warren here this morning at 11 o'clock. You just go to youtube.com/GBH News, scroll back a little bit, you'll be able to do it. And next Friday, Marjorie, Jamie just told me, who's joining us here at the library?
Who is joining us here at the
new
library?
head of the T, Philip Eng.
Oh my God.
I am really looking forward to that.
Oh my God, that poor guy is a glutton for punishment.
One person applauded. Thank you. Mr. Eng will really appreciate that, by the way. That's his wife who just applauded. So it's time for Live Music Friday, which we love. We're joined this week by Zoe Sparks. Zoe's a bass player, singer, songwriter, and after 5 years performing here in Boston, she is allegedly reporting to her state of birth, California. We'll talk about that. As a sort of Boston farewell, she's organized something called Zopocalypse. That's how you call it? Right,
yep.
Okay. This weekend, a 2-day music festival she describes as the groove-tastic and funkalicious fun. I think we were saying that in the 60s,
I
weren't we?
believe so, yeah.
For tickets and more information, Marjorie will give you this in a minute too. Check out her Instagram at @TheZoeSparks. Or I think Eventbrite has tickets too. Am I right about that?
Yeah.
Zoe, it's great to meet you. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So we have so many people from Berkeley come in here, and they're all amazing musicians. So I wondered, you said you grew up in North Hollywood?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So did you come here from California to Berkeley because there's no equivalent of Berkeley in California? Or is it just you wanted a different venue?
I would say a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I always grew up hearing about Berkeley, and I had friends' parents who went here. And when I was 15, I came to Boston for the first time and toured the school, and I just loved it. And I wanted to go as far away from home as I possibly could, so
Yeah.
I landed on this one.
So what are you going home for? I don't get this whole thing. You came here, you and your friends, some of whom, your whole band is here. We'll talk about them in a
Yes.
couple of minutes. Are some or most of them from Berkeley too?
All of them.
They all are?
Yes.
So why are you leaving town? What's with the farewell tour so fast?
So, I mean, we all finished school within the last 2 years, and we've been playing around the Boston music scene for about 2.5 years now.
That's plenty?
Yeah, I mean, it's been great, but I think we're just ready to take that next step, and, a lot of us are from California.
What is the Boston music scene for young players, performers like you? How good is it? How supportive is it?
I think it's a great scene, especially for young people, because it's such a college town. There's so many students coming in and out that it's a lot of it is a very young scene. And it's very small. I feel like we kind of know a lot of the other acts and bands that are doing the Boston circuit.
So I presume that California is bigger and better. That's why you're going there.
Definitely bigger.
Yeah, okay.
Scarier.
Scarier, yeah. And that's part of the reason you're going back.
Yeah, I think it's just a great place to be if you want to tour, if you want to record.
Yeah.
You know
what I read in one of these pieces? What I thought was that I never thought of this before. That when you're making music, you're with your bandmates and they become your buddies.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a sort of working and hanging out thing that goes on there too, which is kind of neat.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a great time together.
Yeah. And do you have to we're gonna shoot the breeze for like a half an hour, then we're gonna work, or is it structured like that, or how does it go?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, we can get carried away sometimes, but we definitely have a good relationship where we can get down to business and be productive.
Worked really hard with George Harrison and Lennon and McCartney, don't you think? They really got along great after a while,
Well,
no?
they got along well at the beginning.
Did you watch the film?
We're dating ourselves here, Jim.
No,
This
the
is
film
new
came
hot
out 2
music
years
scene.
ago.
We're going back to the
film came out
Beatles.
2 years ago.
That's right. The film came out 2 years ago.
Okay, so what's this? It's not quite your farewell tour. It's your farewell to Boston thing. This Zopocalypse thing. So what's going on there?
So I decided that it would be really fun to put together not just a show, but a whole festival of bands that are either close friends or just other staples in the Boston music scene, and people we've played with before, some people we've always wanted to play with. And it turned into this 2-day event, and it's so much bigger and crazier than I could have expected.
But it's music. I mean, tell us some of the musicians,
Yeah.
vendors, everything, food, the whole deal,
Vintage
right?
clothes exchanges.
Yeah,
I love that.
Along with the music, there's going to be people selling jewelry, handmade jewelry and clothing, baked goods, just things like that, artwork.
Do you want to hold up that thing to the
Yeah.
camera so people can see what the deal is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got it right here.
Very nice poster. You probably did the poster yourself too, right? Did you do that in your spare time, or what the hell happened?
Make
with
the
that?
poster?
Exactly.
Oh,
right?
yes. I had some help, but
It's a stunning poster.
Pardon my ignorance, but we had a woman in the studio the other day. Were you? I don't think you were in with this band that was playing at the Lowell Folk Festival called Revma,
No.
which played Greek music. The woman was playing an accordion. And I have to say, I've never seen a woman play an accordion. There are not a hell of a lot of women playing bass, are there, or are there?
I mean, there are more that should be in the spotlight than are. I think, it's typical that the man gets hired playing bass and.
Just occurred to me, isn't
your father
wait a second,
plays
isn't
bass.
Esmeralda
Esperanza Spalding.
is a Berkeley
Yes.
grad, is she not?
Oh, yes.
And Grammy winner and bass
She's
player
phenomenal.
extraordinaire
Yeah.
and all that sort of
Yeah.
stuff.
But wasn't it
Esperanza.
part? I figured it was part of your father. The drum thing you decided didn't go so well, so you went to. I mean, he did the bass.
Yeah, my father
Yeah.
plays the bass.
So there you go, like father, like daughter.
Yeah.
So you're going to play a couple of selections for us. What's the first thing you're playing?
The first song that we're going to play is called Why'd It Have to Be You?
Did you write this thing?
Yes.
When'd you write it?
I wrote this 3 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago. And it is out on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, all of those places.
And when you come back from I Am Play-Doh, you can introduce all your bandmates?
Yeah,
Is that part of the
definitely.
deal? So gently put your headset down on
All right.
whatever that thing is there. And then we're going to... What's the name? Is there a name of the band?
Zoe Sparks.
Well, I guess that makes sense. Little egomaniacal, doesn't
Yeah,
it think?
no, I'm
I mean, it
incredibly
really is.
self-centered.
Really?
Yeah.
They hate that, by the way. I talked to them before. They're not happy.
I know, they all wanted their names on the poster. I was like, there's not enough room.
Okay, the band's name is Zoe Sparks. They are going to play Why'd It Have to Be You? You can put your thing down here. And again, Zopocalypse, you can get tickets on Instagram at the Zoe Sparks, obviously spelled exactly the way it sounds, or you go to Eventbrite, and here they are, Zoe Sparks playing Why'd It Have to Be You? Welcome.
Oh, I know that you don't feel it, and it's clear that you don't need me, and I wish you weren't so appealing, and I don't know where I got these feelings. I'll give it up when the river stops running. I've had enough when the storm starts coming. What can I say? It was out of the blue, but I'ma try anyway that I can to forget it's you. I don't mind feeling blue if it means I'm getting over you. And I'm sure it won't be long before my heart realizes this is wrong. Oh, no, and I know I give it up when the river stops running. I've had enough when the storm starts coming. What can I say? It was out of the blue, but I'ma try anyway that I can to forget it's you. Oh Lord, why'd it have to be you? I'ma do what I can to forget it's true. Oh Lord, why'd it have to be you? I'ma do what I can to forget it. Oh Lord, why it have to be you? I'ma do what I can to forget it. Oh Lord, why it have to be you? I'ma do what I can. Hey, no. I give it up when the river stops running and I'm hiding up when the storm starts coming. What can I say? Oh no, it was not at the beat, but I'ma try anyway that I can to forget it too. Why do you have to be you?
Woo!
Joey Sparks.
That
Come
was
back, Joey,
great.
if you would.
She's
That
going to
was
come back
great.
and introduce her band members in just a second, and then I'm going to ask her about how you do the arranging, because you've got two trombones and a trumpet player there, which is you don't always see in rock bands.
Two sax.
Two saxophones, excuse
Yeah.
me. That's not a trombone, it's a saxophone.
It's a horn,
Yeah,
nevertheless.
I used to play the clarinet. You know, I was really impressive in the third grade
Apparently
band.
so.
Yeah.
Ooh, you should come play a song with us this weekend.
I don't think I can
think
do
so.
that.
Go ahead.
But I'm just thinking about
Well,
that.
first, who
does-
are these people?
Yeah,
Can we
introduce
tell
the
us who
band
they are?
members.
All right. So on the guitar over here, we've got Eli Torgerson.
Hello, Eli.
On the drums is Mike Chapin,
Hey, Mike.
the legend. On the alto sax, all the way to the right, is Charles Ritz.
Hey, Charles.
On the trumpet is Ben Daler.
Hello, Ben.
And on the tenor saxophone is Alex Rashad.
Hey, Alex.
Okay,
They're
so
great.
I
Great.
embarrassed myself for getting the instruments wrong, but anyway.
Whatever they are.
Who does the arranging? Is it you? I mean, how do you figure out how the horns are going to come in these songs?
So, I mean, it's definitely a group effort.
Yeah.
Charles is definitely the mastermind behind the horn arrangements. We kind of work together. I'll write the song and I'll bring it to the group and we'll see how everything pieces together. And then the last thing we do is usually write the horn arrangement on top.
Yeah.
So that
I mean, that's a big difference, horns in a band. To me, it's a big difference.
Yeah.
Great big difference.
Well, it's
Yeah.
also a throwback thing. I mean, it really is in a lot of ways. I mean, you've heard music that had that sort of feel long before Zoe Sparks was on the planet, don't you think, Marjorie?
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. It makes a huge difference. So tell us, when people go to this, they're going to hear music and they're going to be able to get vintage clothes. They're going to hear music and be able to get baked goods. It's going to be an all day long thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I'm just hoping that it brings a big sense of community for all of the Boston artists and concert goers. I think it's a really going to be a fun way to just kind of bring everyone together. It's a lot of different genres, and
Did you say where it is? Somerville. But where is it in Somerville?
it's in Somerville at the Warehouse 11.
Oh, okay.
And how many different bands are going to perform? How many performers?
There are 15 or 16.
Wow.
Yeah.
So is everybody going to get like on a big bus and drive? I don't quite get this California thing. Everybody's just picking up all their crap in their houses and.
Yeah, I mean, we're all kind of getting there in our own
But within
terms
a finite period of time?
that we spend there.
No, a finite period. Everybody's going to end up there at a particular time, and you're all going to regroup and
Yeah, we
do
move at the
Zoe
end of the
Sparks
month.
thing or something.
Yeah.
You are. You anxious about this or no?
Yes.
Are they? Are they?
I don't know.
Are they?
What do you think? They're
Are
fine.
are the rentals?
I'd
as
say it's a
expensive-
split even.
Are the rentals as much money there as they are here, or they're more?
Oh, there's nothing quite like the rent in Boston. So
Yeah.
it's
It's a little better.
It's a little better.
Wow.
I've found.
And you're going to the Los Angeles area, right? Wow. So it's even cheaper there than here. That's really kind of shocking, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean it's pretty similar, but yeah, not a huge jump, but
Yeah. Okay.
So who you dying? Is there somebody you're dying to play with? You're also young.
Yeah.
And look great, and you sound great. Is there somebody you've been dying to play with? Or you're hoping that when this journey to California happens, you end up on a stage with? Is there that person?
Definitely.
Like who?
I mean, I'm a really big fan of this like Silk Sonic Bruno Mars, Anderson
Paak.
Paak
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
That's like the dream. Would love
Yeah.
to do something like that.
Yeah. Well, Bruno Mars just hanging out everywhere. I'm sure you'll bump into him
Yeah, maybe.
somewhere. Yeah.
And your parents are still there in California,
Yes.
right? So they'll be
They
able
are.
to come see you perform a lot more.
Yep.
So that's a big plus. Your dad still play the bass?
Yeah, he does.
Do you play it professionally?
Yeah, he's done a lot of different stuff throughout the years.
Yeah.
But-
So when you go to a place like Berkeley, you must realize, you're kind of like you're a hot shot in high school, you're...
Oh,
you're-
yeah.
Yeah. Then you get to Berkeley and suddenly you're surrounded by hot shots.
Yep, and you're the worst one.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of unnerving for a musician, right?
It is, and it was a big hurdle to get over. I think
Yeah.
probably for everyone. You leave high school being like the musician at your high school, one of them, and then you get to this, you're this huge pond, little fish, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
Zoe Sparks, I got to give you a little PR advice here. Is that
For
okay?
sure.
You're not promoting this thing nearly
Oh,
enough. Let me tell you, here's how you do this. What did Marjorie just ask your father? Is your father still playing
Yes.
bass? Yes, he
Yes.
is. And by the way, there are going to be a lot of bass players in Somerville.
Yeah.
And by the way, Marjorie said, is it all day? No, it's not all day, Marjorie. It's 2 days. Zoe
2 days.
Sparks. Isn't it
It
2
is.
days?
All 2 days.
2 days starts at 4
2 days.
p.m.
And does it cost anything?
It does.
Where do you pay and how much does it
So
cost?
you can go find the link on my Instagram, or you can go to tinyurl.com/zopak2023.
Yeah, and what is your
Oh,
Instagram?
wait a
We gotta
minute,
hear
wait a
what
minute.
is
I
your
gotta get
Instagram?
this straight,
Wait a
man.
second. I'm trying to help. The Zoe Sparks.
The
correct?
Zoe Sparks is my
On Instagram. Yeah.
Yes.
Band Zoe Sparks. The Instagram is the Zoe Sparks.
Yes.
Well, I
Yeah.
have written here, we want to make sure we get this right, to get tickets at your Instagram page at the Zoe Sparks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, just want to
In
make sure we
addition to
can
that
put
other
that
thing
up.
which no one can remember, and
Yeah.
Eventbrite,
Yeah.
and all this sort of thing.
Okay, so we're going to have another song now.
Yeah, what are you playing?
What are you playing?
Yes. All right. We are playing a new song that is not out.
Whoa.
It is called Boston.
Oh,
Yeah.
Thought it'd be fitting.
Who wrote
Oh, that's
that?
very good.
who wrote that?
I wrote it.
You wrote it.
Yes.
Want to tell us anything about it or no?
It's a song about. It's not really about Boston. That's just the title.
They're fooling us.
Yeah.
Are you going to play it at Zopocalypse?
Oh yes.
Okay, fine.
You will
When
be
is
able
it
to hear
again?
this. So Apocalypse is tomorrow and Sunday, August 5th and 6th.
Starts at 4 o'clock tomorrow.
Starts
Did
at
you know
4
that?
o'clock.
Do you know they have a lot of vendors and a lot of things there,
Yeah.
plus tons of
Jewelry.
musical
Yes,
acts?
lots of
You know
bass
all that?
players, lots of horns.
Hold it up one
Yep.
more time. Can we bring the
There it
camera
is.
around back in this direction? No,
Oh,
apparently
Midnight
not.
Breakfast.
Yeah, are you familiar?
Yeah, I've
Wait.
heard of them.
Cool.
You have?
Yeah, well, I do have children that
You
try
do
to
have children, okay.
keep me in the 21st century.
Hey, Zoe Sparks, you're great, and Zoe Sparks,
you.
which is the band, is pretty great too. And
Thank
you're
you
about
very
to play
much.
Boston. Good luck this weekend.
Thank
and
you so much for
good luck
having
in
me.
California. We're thrilled to
Yeah.
have you, Zoe Sparks.
Thank you. We'll see
about
you there.
to play Boston.
I'm going to say again, the music festival is this weekend in Somerville. You can get more information and get tickets at Zoe's Instagram page at the Zoe Sparks, and it's spelled just like it sounds, ZOESPARKS at the Zoe Sparks.
Before you do this, I
Yes.
didn't even know you played the clarinet till 2 days ago.
Right.
Were you decent? Don't be your
Terrible,
humble self.
terrible.
Were you really terrible?
I was very good at the piano, very bad at the clarinet. You know when you're worried about your mouth? I was worried
You
about
are.
my mouth was going to be deformed
Yeah.
from the embouchure.
And what are those two instruments called
Yeah, I
over
goofed
there
that
on the
up.
side?
I
What are
goofed
those
up.
things?
Saxophones.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
fine.
I'm sorry.
Here's this band. It happens to be called Zoe Sparks playing Boston.
Oh, I wish I was pretty. I wish that I was on your mind. I wish I'd had the guts to tell you not to leave once you arrived. But I still tried. I bet our conversation didn't have you convinced. 'Cause somewhere else in Boston lives the girl you like to be with. I don't see you enough, but it already hurts too much to think that you wouldn't want to try.
Sparks,
That
Boston.
was-
Thank you all.
And the Zoe Sparks Zoepocalypse Music Festival is this weekend in Somerville. You can get more information and get tickets at Zoe's Instagram page, which is at the Zoe Sparks, at the Zoe Sparks. 2-day music festival starting tomorrow in Somerville at the Zoe Sparks for tickets. Thank you so much for you guys for coming
Thank you all.
in. That
You're
was
great.
great.
Really
Good luck
appreciate
this
it.
weekend.
You're great.
Okay, coming up. Jeff Edgers is a national arts reporter for the Washington Post. He'll join us next to discuss the life and death of Irish musician Sinéad O'Connor. You are listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marge Regan. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at facebook.com/GBH News, youtube.com/GBH News. Next Tuesday at the Boston Public Library, Maura Healey, the governor, joins us for an hour of Ask the Governor from noon to 1. And we return to the library next Friday. A week from today, Philip Eng, we haven't met him before, the general manager of the T, the relatively new general manager of the T, joins us. One little news update, by the way, we all knew that indictments were coming down in Georgia sometime in early August. And The Hill is reporting that all the streets have been closed to general traffic in Atlanta, near the courthouse there, starting at 5 a.m. this coming Monday through August 18th. This is according to the Fulton County Sheriff's Office, so it's pretty obvious. There will be indictments handed down between Monday, what day is Monday, 7th, I think?
I don't know.
Not sure. And the 18th of August, roads closed for that week and a half or whatever it is at the Atlanta courthouse. Brilliant Irish musician Sinead O'Connor died in late July at the age of 56. National arts reporter for the Washington Post, used to be the Boston Globe, Jeff Edgers, wrote an incredibly beautiful tribute to her, revisiting their relationship in this road trip he took with O'Connor in early 2020, right before the world shut down because of COVID. He describes her song in the piece, The Last Day of Our Acquaintance, as a breakup song like no other. Jeff Edgers joins us now via Zoom. Jeff, it's great to see you. Welcome back to the show. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
We're glad to have you.
Thank you very much for joining us again. So, gosh, hearing that that song, that
Haunting.
voice again. Yeah, it's, I mean, what an incredible musician and what an incredible voice she had. But tell us how, starting out as a reporter, it doesn't usually happen. You go interview people and you do the interview and that's the end of it and you write your story. But this is not what happened. Tell us about covering Sinead O'Connor.
Well, I sort of specialize in profiles here, and I don't believe that what we do should be transactional, like the subject needs something done at a certain time and we need to write a story and just bang it out. My approach really is to build some kind of connection to somebody who might be really hard to get to. And, you know, sometimes when the story's over, it's over. But there are a lot of people I've written about that the experience has been more than just an interview. And so they keep in touch. And so Sinead, you know, was a very complicated figure, obviously, and was, you know, had terrible lows and great highs. But she would occasionally write to me, or I'd write to her, send her a text message or whatever. I mean, the big thing that I do on almost all my stories, and it's nothing against publicists, but I try to like get the phone number so that I can reach the person. And that usually leads to a little bit of a deeper relationship. So even after that story ended, it was a weird, we published that story right before everything shut down for the pandemic and her like tour was actually canceled. But we stayed in touch, and I did a Washington Post Live, which is something we have on our website, a live interview on the Washington Post, almost a year later, with me at home and her in Ireland. So we kept in touch. That's what I would say.
By the way, this is the same guy, speaking of does things that some reporters try not to. About a decade ago, there, give or take a couple years, he went on a worldwide mission to reunite the kinks, I should say. You should see the film to find out what happened.
That was great.
But wait a second, let's go back to the beginning. It was not you who was looking, well, maybe you were, for a deeper relationship. My understanding is when you saw her, I think in Northern California, and she had to go to Southern California, she's the one that said, instead of flying, I'll drive with you. Is that not correct?
Well, I've been trying to get to Sinead for years, and there are subjects I write them. I have a little quirky old man typewriter at home. I send them letters. I've sent people 45 records that I think they'll like. I try every way I can. You know, I send a note to Bobby Gentry every year, hoping that she'll speak to me because she hasn't done an interview since like 1981.
Wow.
But some of them come through, and at one point Sinead just said, I'm going on this tour, why don't you come out and see me in San Francisco? So I went, and I couldn't believe the show. It was unbelievable to me. Her performance was just really right on. So, and very beautiful and very intense. But then after it, she had to go down to Los Angeles, and Sinead, she liked to smoke, you know, the funny stuff. And so she didn't want to I think she didn't want to get on the plane and have to either check it in or not check it in. I'll be honest, I don't transport a lot of, like, you know, weed. So I don't know what the standards are. But maybe she just wanted to smoke and like didn't want to have it break. But she said, "Oh, can I drive with you?" And I turned to Aaron, my videographer, and I was like, "Aaron, we're gonna have Sinead go with us." And he's like, will we have to pay like a fee on the rental car if there's smoke in it? I'm like, Aaron, it's Sinead O'Connor. Like, I'm sure like Jeff Bezos he can foot the bill for such a thing.
He owns the Washington Post, for the three people who don't know that. By the way.
He does, thank you, yeah. And so we went on a road trip. It was like 8 hours in a van, and we spent we talked about everything. We talked about things she showed me these like funny country music parody songs by this guy Wheeler Walker with totally like unprintable words, probably tasteless. We listened to blues that she liked. We listened to like other stuff. We went to the In-N-Out Burger. She'd never gone there and she wanted to go there. And you know, Sinead had converted to Islam, so she had a hijab, and I was just sitting out there with her eating this burger. I was just thinking, like, this is one of the most paparazzi people in the world probably at one point, and we're just like sitting there, and she's having a burger in this hijab. But it was very. She was a really smart, engaging person, and very emotional. And she talked a lot about her son, who was having a lot of trouble. He's a teenager who's in an adolescent hospital for, it sounded like depression and some mental health issues, and she was really heartbroken about that. And we talked about him a lot. I didn't reveal that in my story because she said, and she even sent me a note from the government saying, you cannot talk about this, your son. She wanted to talk about him, but she couldn't because she feared she would lose access to him. So, but we talked about him.
You know, for people who don't remember or only know the famed night on Saturday Night Live with the Pope photograph, give people a little synopsis of the career of Sinead O'Connor, because she really burst onto the scene in a big way.
Yeah, I mean, Sinead came out of Ireland in the late '80s. She the thing that everybody knows her for most. It's funny because as you know, I'm a music nerd, but it's like Harry Nilsson. He's known best. One of the great songwriters of the pop era is known best for a song he didn't write. You know, I Can't Live If Living Is Without You. Yeah. Sinead is best known for Nothing Compares to You, which was the song that Prince wrote, and she ended up doing, and that's her song. I mean, I know he wrote it, but so she has this wonderful rise. She's also like so different from most, really became a model for, I think, kind of like tough punk and alternative and Lilith Fair and just a whole range of women musicians who suddenly see this woman go out there. When she performed on the Grammys, I think the first time, she had like her son's onesie as like a rag in her back pocket. She had shaved her head. She's beautiful, but she chose to ignore what the record company people were saying, which was like, grow your hair long and be all, girly, I guess. And she was just like, unlike anything else, very confrontational, very direct, very emotional. And, the thing you talk about with Saturday Night Live, where she ripped up the picture of the Pope, it's like, I know this is a weird connection, but I think it's like she and Monica Lewinsky in a weird way. These two were like savaged in that generation.
Yep.
And, Sinead was attacked. She didn't really explain it well, and maybe she could have gotten better judgment on how to explain it. But basically, she was attacked for her protest of the way the Catholic Church abused children. I mean, that was her thing. I mean, when she talked about it later, she was very explicit about it because this was revealed in Ireland, what was going on there, before it was revealed in the States. So she was right on. But because of that, for some reason, it was out of respect for the Pope. People were furious with her, and it reframed her whole life.
We're talking to Jeff Edgers from the Washington Post, who wrote this beautiful story about his relationship with Sinead O'Connor immediately after her death. Just to hear her voice, because most of us never heard her speak. Jeff mentioned a subsequent interview he did for the Washington Post. Here is Sinead O'Connor talking about mental health issues, her mental health state, with Jeff in the car.
I think everybody is supposed to break down at least once in life. Wake up. Yeah. I would be lying if I said I'm not someone who is carrying a lot of pain, as well as a lot of joy. You know what I'm saying? So I don't want to make out like, being well and managing your condition doesn't mean that you're not going to feel like sometimes. It just means that when you feel like you can still get up and get on with your life,
I think I was wrong. Was that in the car on the way to LA, or was that the subsequent interview?
That sounded like it was in the car to LA. Okay. The one that we did on the Washington Post Live just sounded different. Okay. I think that was probably in the car.
Did she get care that she obviously needed, Jeff Edgers?
Did she get care, you're saying?
Care, yes.
Yeah, I mean, Sinead was in and out of hospitals for like 6 years or something. She was always, I mean, I'll just tell you, it's like I wanted to do an Instagram Live with her. This is like these little chuckles, it's like the laughing because you're crying in a weird way. It's like, it's so perfectly Sinead, but she wanted to I was doing an Instagram Live show on the Washington Post during the pandemic, and she wanted to be on it. And so we organized it, and she gave me her address, and she popped up one day. We were going to do a test run. just to make sure the technology was okay. And I was like, where are you? And she's like, oh, I'm in like a treatment center. I was like, do you want that on the Instagram? Like, it was odd to me. And we agreed to just postpone it for a little while. But she would go in because she really wanted to, there were mental health issues. There were times when she talked to me about not wanting to smoke so much pot, you know? But she was always dealing with that. And then obviously like more, you know, people took advantage of her too. I mean, like she ended up going on Dr. Phil.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really angered her. You know, she had this, we put it in our video that's up on the Washington Post story, but, you know, Sinéad had this terrible thing where she went on Facebook. She was living in a motel in New Jersey, and she was having a depressive episode, and she said she was gonna, she sounded like she was gonna kill herself, and she was crying on the video, and then people couldn't find her for like a day, and they found her after. And after that, I think Dr. Phil's people reached out to her and offered like they would send her to like a center for treatment if she came on the show, and so she did that. It's really unpleasant to watch. It's just manipulative and obviously centered on Dr. Phil getting ratings. So yeah, she always, you know, she tried. I mean, that's the thing about Sinéad. That's why people who cared about her, it's not a shocker that Sinéad is not here, but it's heartbreaking because you know that she was trying. You know that she was working hard at it. And I saw her on that tour, and it was startling how professional and how on top of, you know, we hear all these stories about artists who aren't like in great condition, and they go on and it doesn't work out right, or they have a meltdown. That was not going on with Sinéad. She was playing these like venues that were way smaller than she should be playing, and it was like a religious experience.
Well, I mean, there is something in her voice that's otherworldly. One of your favorite words, Jim. But you know, I was reading about her in anticipation of talking to you today too, and there were some, I forget who wrote it, but there was someone who wrote about how, you know, she was a beautiful, when she was young, she had this pixie thing going on, you know, and very waif-like and just gorgeous, and how she was mistreated in part for getting older. That there was kind of a real misogyny aimed at her because she was not 25.
You mean in the industry you're talking about?
Well, just in general, yeah. And treated very badly in the press and ridiculed in the press and that kind of thing. Not you. You didn't do that, but you know what I mean? Other people did.
Well, I don't know if it was ageist or, you know, misogynistic. I mean, obviously women in entertainment don't get treated the same way. I mean, I think about film, you know, film roles in general. I think the thing that was so unfair to Sinéad is, if you remember the wake of the Saturday Night Live situation, you had all these guys like Joe Pesci went on Saturday Night Live. I don't have the quotes on the top of my head, so you'll just have to look them up. But it's like, and Frank Sinatra, you know, like I think they, you know, they had this thing like, hey, this bald chick needs to get it together, you know, like this kind of. I guess it was for like campiness or whatever you'd call, you know, maybe they were trying to be entertaining, but it was not right. And you had like, you know, there's an article like Cardinal Bernard Law, we know that record.
Yeah.
He did an interview after she did that, criticizing her, and we quoted it. When I say we the collective industry, and we allowed this narrative to emerge that Sinéad was wrong or unstable or whatever. And, you know, we don't really treat mental health very well in the entertainment industry. I always like to think of, I did a big piece on Roseanne Barr a couple of years ago, and I just like to think of the fact that Roseanne has been very open about her mental health struggles. And for some reason in the 90s or the 80s, it was like seen as a badge of courage. And she was praised for being the crazy one, right? Quote unquote. And then when something happened that people couldn't explain so well, she was suddenly, you know, attacked for being the crazy one. And I don't want to get into the details of what, you know, we know what she did and what she tweeted, but the reality is this was the same person. And the problem is when you're in the public eye and everybody's scrutinizing every movement, it's very, very hard to have these issues. You know, I mean, look at Britney Spears, right? I mean, how we treated her, and now how we're looking at her, and she's almost like I just don't. I don't see her anywhere. You know, she's not talking. You know, you have a choice of closing off or just shutting down or trying to fight through it.
Well, you know, I mean, obviously, Sinead O'Connor had a lot of tragedy here. Her son did take his own life, apparently while he was in suicide watch, I think I read. And it wasn't that much longer after that she took her own life as well. How long was that?
Well, I mean, we should be very clear. There's no cause of death. You know, no one, she was found unresponsive in an apartment in London, and no one has, there's been no, I guess they'll have some kind of medical report that comes out. So
we don't know. Okay.
There's no cause of death. We do know that when Shane died, she, first of all bets were off about not talking about him. She went on the internet and on shows, and you know, she responded like Sinead sometimes did. First, she attacked his father. She attacked the Irish government and the healthcare system and then she got on and said, I'm wrong and I apologize. And you know, but she talked very openly about it. I mean, Shane, if you saw a picture of him with her, he looked like her.
I looked it up. Yeah,
he you know, he had buzzed his head. He had the blue eyes. He was. She has, I think, 4 children. There was something she really identified with Shane, I think probably because of his real struggles, you know? She thought he was a really gifted thinker, but also a really damaged person. And she felt great guilt about that. So she, that really did, you know, that influenced a lot. She also, you know, she went on like Facebook like a week before she died, I think a week before she died, and she talked about a new album she had recorded.
Yeah.
I'd heard a couple of the songs. Apparently there was a producer says they're like, it's almost complete. So she also, you know, one day she could say, I'm quitting this business, I'm never doing it again. And the next day she would send you this demo that would just break your brain, you know, your heart, your brain, I don't know. It was like, whoa, how'd that get done?
Can you tell that story, Jeff, before you go? It was really tender. That demo, I assume you're talking about his Horse on the Highway, which I had never heard until you wrote your piece. Describe her outreach to you about that and your response to her, if you would. Well,
she wrote this song. I'd gone, after the road trip, I went to Ireland and I spent like 4 days there. She had a house in Bray, which is a nice village, like it's on the water south of Dublin. And I spent some time with her there. And when I got back home, as I was writing the story, she said, I wrote a song. I was like, oh, can I hear it? I mean, like, so she sent it to me and she said, I wrote it and I recorded a demo. And she had a funny, she's like, you know, she mentioned she had a chest cold and like she was doing it on a crappy phone, whatever. But it was it was a great song. It's structured like a sort of like classic country kind of, I almost think of like a George Jones song. And it was obvious what it was about, but she also said, this is about Shane. So I naturally said, my gosh, we're running this story. Can we run the song? First she was like, I'm not sure. And then she said, she was very enthusiastic about us running the song and asked me to do it, but said, please, whatever you can do, don't tell anyone it's about Shane. She actually wanted me to write, like, I talked to her about it. She wanted me to write something that said it wasn't autobiographical. You know, it's sometimes like you don't want to deny something to make it obvious. So I just said, you know what, let's just present the song as it is and tell people where it came from. And so we have it, you know, it's on it's digitized, it's on the big article I wrote and also the tribute I wrote last week. And it's amazing what someone can do just off the cuff like that. You think, and it makes you realize that she processed, there's a reason she was an artist. She processed this pain and what she was going through into the most beautiful art you can imagine. And, you know, that's, I think, just one of the 90 reasons our hearts break when we think about it.
Jeff Edgers, your piece is terrific. We're going to play that song on the way out in just a second, Horse on the Highway. Thanks for your time. And by the way, Bobby Gentry just texted and said, stop bothering her. I don't know if you I'm sorry, but she just, Jeff, seriously, your piece is beautiful.
Yeah.
I really appreciate your time today. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
Good to see you, Jeff Edges from the Washington Post, formerly of the Boston Globe.
Are we going to play that song?
Yeah, why don't you tell us what's coming up, and then they'll play a part of Horse on the Highway.
That was Jeff Edges from the Washington Post, national arts reporter there. We're going to play this song in just a second, and then we're going to talk to GBH Executive Arts Editor Jared Bowen. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, and here is Horse Highway.
Horse on the Highway.
The flames around felt oh so real to me. And as they rose up higher and higher, I heard your sweet voice calling out for me.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan. We're broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming on Facebook.com/GBH News, YouTube.com/Philip Ang, who's the new head of the T, will join us. By the way, you know who just said hello to us? Arjun Singh, who used to be a producer on our show. He now works at the Washington Post, and he just said that Jeff is now leaving to do the podcast that Arjun produced for the Washington Post. Pretty good connection. By the way, that incredibly haunting, beautiful song, Horse on the Highway, I can't remember if you can find it online, but if you go to Jeff's piece in the Washington Post, near the bottom of the story, you can click on a link and you can hear it there. Joining us now at the Boston Public Library is GBH's Executive Arts Editor, wearing skull and crossbones, whatever that means. That's not good. Jared Bowen. How are you, Jared?
I think it's skull and feathers, actually.
Skull and feathers.
Yeah. I'm well.
By the way, do you know you had an assignment from 2 weeks ago? Do you know what your assignment was?
I do, and I know the answer.
What was the assignment?
The assignment was to figure out what Hubie meant.
Hubie was the name of my store in Providence.
The name of your store.
And you obviously looked it up. You didn't figure it out.
No, but all of a sudden I'm blanking. Wait, it's a...
HUBE was the name of my store in Provincetown.
It's not hurry up and buy everything. It was...
That's actually pretty good. That was wrong, but it was not that. So do you have any idea what it was?
It was something about sales, though. It just went out of my head.
It'll
come to me by the end of the segment.
That's really impressive. Okay. We're talking to Jared Bowen,
I go to sleep
Executive Arts.
thinking about this.
I bet you do.
So Jared Bowen, tell us the Cape Ann Museum that I think a lot of us may have overlooked in our museum visiting. They've got an extraordinary exhibition going on up there. Tell us.
Yeah, this is a very, very exciting moment. The exhibition is called Edward Hopper in Cape Ann, Illuminating an American Landscape. It just opened. It's on view through October 16th. The Cape Ann Museum is quite a powerful museum. It has a huge Fitzhenry Lane exhibition or holding. It tells the maritime history. It has a lot of artists you would recognize. But it just recently opened a campus on the green nearby, and then it has moved forward in a major way with this Edward Hopper exhibition. They will tell you it's the largest exhibition they've ever mounted. I was there on Wednesday. Throngs were already coming through, so it's timed ticketed entry. If you remember last year, there was a show of Edward Hopper
At the Whitney.
at the Whitney
that we
Museum.
both went to. It was knock your socks off.
Both is you two, unfortunately,
Yes.
not me. But go ahead. I feel
And
bad about it.
as is this one, and I mentioned that one because this is kind of a companion show, actually. So the Whitney show was all about Edward Hopper's New York, those urban scenes of loneliness
Looking
and
in
urban
windows.
buildings.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Nighthawks. That wasn't there, though. That wasn't there. That was the only one that wasn't there.
That was not. That's at the
No.
Art
It's
Institute.
good
They-
you mentioned it, though. Go
They
ahead.
lend it rarely, but this is the exhibition that tells a story of essentially 5 years, 5 consecutive summers that Edward Hopper spent on Cape Ann painting scenes in Gloucester, and this became a seminal moment in his career, and here's why. So here he is at about age 40, 41, and he's only sold 1 painting in his entire life. He had been an illustrator and a graphic artist prior to this. So he goes to Cape Ann and he meets Josephine Nivison, who would become Josephine Hopper, his wife.
Oh.
She had been an art student. They had crossed paths. She actually had more of a successful career at that point than he did because she had been represented in galleries and she was getting represented in shows. And they met when he found her cat, her tabby cat, who had escaped in Gloucester, and she began to push him to paint in different ways, starting with watercolor. So Edward Hopper goes to Gloucester and he starts to depict the landscape, but really, as Oliver Barker, the director of the museum, pointed out to me, he turns his back on the water and depicts a lot of houses. What Elliot Bostwick Davis, the rock star curator of the show, who scored all of these major loans, talks about house portraiture. So we were just talking about those lonely scenes of
Yes.
New York where you see maybe 1 or 2 people in an
Yes.
interior.
A lot of them are his wife that he painted later, right?
The model for every single woman he ever painted was his wife,
Yeah.
Josephine
Yeah.
Nivison.
Oh, that's pretty
Very
good.
sexy.
Yes, quite sultry.
That's right.
And so you see these renditions of homes with these blacked out windows, and you don't really have a sense of an interior. But it's over this time that he really finds his way as an artist, sells his first painting, which you will see in this show, and then catapults into the Edward Hopper that we knew today. And I asked Elliot Bostwick Davis, I said, really, would Edward Hopper have happened without Cape Ann? And she doesn't believe he would have. It was just what happened there changed him fundamentally. So you see all manner of artwork. They have about 100 pieces. I think it's about 100 pieces in this show. And this also comes on the 100th anniversary of his first trip to Gloucester.
How long is it there?
It's on view through October 16th.
Before we go to the
But
next,
it's timed, so you got to get tickets so you get them there
Yeah.
at the right
Yeah,
time.
but
It's such a crowd.
And you don't want to miss this show, especially they have this big grand finale of 3 major portraits, or I guess house portraits, you could say, paintings, oil paintings that have not been reunited in a very long time, if ever.
what are you trying to say with the skull and feathers with that shirt? What's the statement?
I just
exactly?
liked it.
Just
Maybe,
liked it.
maybe
I
it
think it's
reflects
very
my
nice.
mood. I
It's
guess.
Okay, maybe
smooth.
it does. Okay, let's go to the Harvard Art Museums. And what do we always say now first when we mention the Harvard Art Museums? One word.
Free.
Free. Thank you very
Free.
much. We're not saying low quality. It's very high quality, but it's also free. So I'm reading the story, the untold story about watercolors, and it seems to me, knowing nothing about art except that which I like, are watercolors considered sort of second-class citizens? I mean, that's the takeaway I get from this. Is that
Well, some people will suggest that.
why?
I don't know why. Maybe it's an association with everybody kind of starts on watercolors.
Okay.
In kindergarten, we all
Maybe,
start
okay.
first and second grade. We start with watercolors, and I think the sense is that you always graduate to something else. We talked about Edward Hopper. It changed how he began to paint in oils. But this show at the Harvard Art Museum right now, museum's called American Watercolors 1880 to 1990, Into the Light, and it's on view only through August 13th. I unfortunately get to it a little bit late. Shows you the great experimentation that can happen in watercolor. So first of all, you walk into the galleries and you're met by this case that has some of John Singer Sargent's own materials, his brushes, his tubes of paint, his scraper. And
I love that kind of thing.
So do I.
because it brings you right into this history. You think, I'm so close to being able to touch John Singer Sargent. I have a sense now of what he worked with and how he created this. But you walk through the galleries and you see artists like Alexander Calder and Rothko and Helen Frankenthaler, John Singer Sargent, how they all took watercolor and they did different things with them. In fact, John Singer Sargent said painting a watercolor is making the best of an emergency because it's so complicated. Obviously, you're dealing with water on a paper paper that's sliding around. You're trying to get the exact color that you want. But they, for the most part, these artists start with white paper, and they leave, I think they call it the reserve, so that you have maybe a shimmer of a Venetian lagoon, and that's the white that's coming through that paint color. I remember when I saw Joseph JMW Turner show a few years ago, they pointed out you could see where he would take his fingernail to scrape through the watercolor paint so that he could have that come forward. You see other artists using their fingerprints or salt or wax, whatever they can do to just get this texture and build it up.
It's pretty great. You know, by the way, speaking of how great it is when you have an artist of some sort you love and you get to see he or she or their thing, do you remember, did you ever go to the museum before it was closed in Washington?
I never made it.
So when you go to the
Tim
museum,
Russert's desk.
you walk into the lobby and the first thing you see is Tim Russert's desk.
I know.
As he left it on Meet the
Everybody
Press the
hates
last
the
time.
media, so it shut down
Oh
very
my God,
quickly.
it was so incredibly
I just want to tell you,
moving.
this Fidelia Bridges days
Who's that?
in the meadow, that's one of the people that...
By whom? Oh, that's a person?
That's her name.
What's her name?
Fidelia Bridges.
Whoops.
Daisies in a meadow. I mean,
Missed
this
that.
is extra. People can't see it. Or I can try to hold up.
Oh,
You
that's
can't
really helpful.
You can't see it.
That's really
But
good.
it's an incredible.
Lovely.
It's an incredible watercolor, and women artists, you know, had a very difficult time breaking through in those days, and probably still do to some degree.
Absolutely.
But they did a lot of these kind of nature scenes, right?
A lot of nature scenes. I don't mean to keep going back to Edward Hopper, but we think we know his work. There's a recent acquisition of theirs. It's a very dark house. It's very Edward Hopper-like, so I think there's experimentation. John Singer Sargent, you think, we know that famous portrait of Madam X that hangs at the Met in New York. Very distinguished portrait where he had to change the portrait because it's a very low-cut gown, and one of her straps was hanging off her shoulder, which was considered too scandalous.
That's a great
He had to repaint it
story.
to put the shoulder strap back on top of her shoulder.
Great.
She was ready for a big night.
Exactly. There's a watercolor of Madame Gautreau, I believe her name is, in this museum as well. And then we all had this fun moment when I was there the other day. There's a painting, a watercolor by a Russian artist who has hidden David and Goliath within his landscape. And there were a group of us, when the curators pointed out and conservators pointed out what was there, we were all trying to hunt for these images.
Did you find it?
I only found one of them. I had to have the other pointed out.
Which one you find?
I found David.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I implore everybody to try to go and play that game as well.
Fair enough.
So I think you were, Jim, had the day off.
I
You
was
and
off and they were here.
Interviewed the people from the Old North Church about these plays that this play company is doing. Brilliant idea, these very short plays on the scene. So tell us about what's going on up at the Old North Church.
300th anniversary? Is that what? Is it the 300th? Am I wrong?
Well,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I
think
quite
it is.
remember.
Yeah.
We'll play some sound of it in a second.
But this is called Revolution's Edge, and it takes place on April 18th, 1775. And that evening would be the evening that Paul Revere, they would hang the lanterns, one if by land, two if by sea.
Yep.
And so there are three characters in this play. So you all line up. They even have earlier evening performances. I went at 5 o'clock on a Tuesday, I think, and then picked up my pastries in the North End after. But you walk into the Old North Church, you sit in the pews, just as I would have at this time, and we find three characters. We find a loyalist minister, we find Cato, an African man enslaved by this minister, and then a patriot. And this is a fraught moment in Boston because we get the sense that out in the harbor, the British ships have arrived and they're dispatching messages to people on the shore. We know that out in the suburbs, there are meetings, the farmers are mobilizing, the tension is building, and there's a debate between these two men with Cato trying to assert himself and his place in this society, in this community, about what it means to be a loyalist or what it means to be a patriot. And why would you go against the government at this point? Why do you need to protest? And it's essentially a conversation about insurrection on the eve of one. And it's just, I think, a perfect time for this. And the key here is that it takes place and unfolds in this Old North Church, and so that you feel that you're of this history.
It's been an active house of worship, it says, for 300 years.
We talked with Nikki Stewart and Jasmine Bonner, Plays in Place. That's what they're calling this, I think, a genius idea of going around and putting on a play in the place where it actually happened. And so here's a little sound from Nikki Stewart explaining the role of the Old North Church in the Revolution.
So I think a lot of folks who visit Old North are surprised to learn that it was not a Patriot congregation. In fact, it was a very politically diverse faith community. As a Church of England, of course, the rector is going to be loyal to the king and to Parliament. But we like to say that about a third of the congregation would have been loyalist, about a third would have been Patriot, and about a third just don't want to talk about politics at Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah, this is a great conversation too about how African American history has been kind of just ignored in so many of these situations, and that's why it's so great that they have Cato, the enslaved man, talking about what the revolution could mean to his life and to his family.
Because we know that he didn't have any agency here, and we know that enslavement was just as prevalent here in the North. It doesn't get discussed as much as it was in the South. And I think, as Doris Kearns Goodwin often points out too, we know how history ends when we read the books. We know how the Civil War ends, so we can kind of follow through with a sense of optimism as you're reading through these histories. But this reminds us of what those moments were like, where these men had no idea how this was going to turn out. Would the British troops prevail? Would Cato ever find himself in a position to get any agency whatsoever? And for the Patriot, what is it going to mean when he's essentially giving up everything because he knows he's about to go fight for the other side? Their histories, of course, were very uncertain.
Did you say already how long this is going to be running there?
This is on view through September 19th, or
And
playing
you know what,
through
Jim?
September 19th.
You would love this. You know how long, isn't it like a 40-minute play?
It's about 45 minutes.
45
I like
minutes.
tight productions.
Tight productions. Well, it doesn't get much tighter than 45 minutes for a play.
I'm going to go see the first half of Oppenheimer at some point, too, I think.
Don't you mean like the first quarter of Oppenheimer?
It's 3 hours. People do say it's great. Have you seen it yet? I've not seen it.
I have seen it, and I'm not as mesmerized. I wasn't as mesmerized as any other people know.
Well, you know, the Globe critic wasn't either. Odie Henderson, we have him on the show. He wasn't that mesmerized.
He loved Barbie.
He loved Barbie. Yes, we're going to talk about Barbie in just a few
We
minutes.
are.
But he did not like, so maybe he was the one guy
if
that
we ever
got it
asked
right.
you this, is there any movie ever that needed to be 3 hours long?
No.
Don't say Lawrence of Arabia.
I always say Lawrence of Arabia.
Other
I love
than
that
Lawrence
movie.
of Arabia.
The Godfather.
Oh,
The
John just said The Godfather Part 2.
Absolutely right.
John, you're a genius.
Absolutely
You
right.
really are a
I could have
genius.
watched that forever.
No, but I can't think of another recent one.
Okay, so here's another very interesting idea about...
By the way, someone just texted, says the guy who hosts a 3-hour show.
That's right.
I hadn't thought of that.
That's why we shortened our
Okay,
podcast
thank you.
to a half-hour podcast. Because
Let's
I
drop
thought
that
3
topic.
hours
Thank
for the
you.
podcast was a little
Okay.
much to ask.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's right. We have a new one.
It is a
3
little
hours.
much. If you want to turn it
30
off now,
minutes.
it's fine.
No.
That's, I've had enough.
No, you
too,
don't want it
so.
because we have a lot of great
Okay,
stuff
we
coming
do?
up. Yes, we do.
Okay, fine.
But before we get to that,
What is it?
we have some good stuff going on here with Jared about the transformation at the going out of the Charlestown Navy Yard. This is really neat.
It is very neat, and this is a great pilot program that's being launched by Now and There right now, which is a public art group which has been making so much progress in this city in terms of bringing contemporary public art to the city. But their latest goal is identifying lots around the city that can become an artist incubator space. So the first one is the first Lot Lab, and you can see this work on view through October 31st, is in Charlestown at the entrance to the Charlestown Navy Yard. In fact, out the back of the lot, you can see the back of the USS Constitution. But there you'll find the work of 3 artists. The first is Ghada Amir, and she's Egyptian. She's based out of New York and Paris, and she's created a piece called Women's Qualities. And she takes these metal planters after kind of crowdsourcing what words are associated with women, and she sculpts planters into these words like resilient, strong, and beautiful. And then in the planters are plants that are associated with other words, like blueberry bushes for nourishment. So it's her incorporating what the community's thoughts are about women and their qualities into this piece. Sam Fields is a Boston artist who has created this piece called Stay, which is a massive wall hanging. By the way, I believe the big opening for this is tomorrow, so you can go and visit. There's a big celebration. I believe you can meet the artist. But it's a giant fiber art sculpture inspired by the rigging on sailboats that would hold the mast up, which of course connects to the Navy Yard's history. And the final artist that I was able to see is Mas Grolon, also a Boston artist, a Boston Arts Academy alum who, based on her experience within the Lot Lab, has decided to become a full-time artist. And she's created this graphic painting on the ground that moves up onto a side building that makes for a very Instagrammable moment, but it's in blues and greens, capturing the gradations of color in the nearby waters. So you have all of these artists responding to this time and this period, but also with this overarching theme of mending, because Charlestown has been divided by the Tobin Bridge.
Yep.
We know that there are very affluent areas, there are very heavily touristed areas, but we also know there's a lot of low-income housing in Charlestown. So this is a project that's designed to bring people together, address that, and just give great community art and performance and parties like you'll find tomorrow.
Okay, so we only have a couple minutes left. Let's go to the gardener. And this, you need to explain this.
Jim is
to me.
flummoxed.
No, I'm a little flummoxed.
He
I
doesn't
looked
get
at the
it.
photo. No, don't say I didn't get it. I have some issues with it, but you're going to explain it. You and I did what we thought was going to be the first in a long series of mandates, as we call them. We did it at the gardener. We spent a lot of time in the courtyard, which has some relationship to that. How many did we do after that?
None.
None, exactly. Thank you.
Which I think kind of translates into you broke up with me after that.
That's exactly.
Right. No follow-up.
There were some great moments.
We'll have Meredith dissect this for us after
That's
in
right.
the next
I
segment.
prefer you don't, actually. Thank you, Meredith. So what is this plant deal? What's going on over there?
Well, what do you think it is?
Well, it seems to me that as opposed to creating art about plants, it's art that includes plants. Now, I don't want to disparage anybody. I asked Jamie to send me some photographs this morning so I understood it a little better. And the first thing that came up are plants.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there are a couple of plants in pots sitting there. There's like a stem or whatever you call on a plant, and then a plant. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to disparage anybody because I'm assuming it's fabulous.
Yeah.
But well, maybe you explain it a little bit better because I don't think I'm helping this exhibit at all.
Okay, I think I know which installation you're talking about there. So yes, you're right. This is rarely have we seen a show like this actually.
Exactly.
And we should we should point out it's called Presence of Plants in Contemporary Art.
Okay.
It's an on view through September 17th.
They're present.
At the Gardner
They are.
Museum.
That's right.
In the art.
But these are artists who, it's not about plants, as you say, but they're using plants to tell a story. So the one that you're talking about, you see a string of plants in plastic containers up on the wall.
No.
No, he's talking
Two
about
plants,
two big plants.
just sitting there by themselves.
No, they weren't
It
sitting.
was?
See, that's what happens.
What
if you
happened?
go there, you see that they're spinning around each other. You see the shadows that
well,
they represent.
no
and
one
they're
told me
gorgeous
that.
trees,
Okay,
actually.
fine, okay.
So that's one piece. One I would just started to talk about. You'll find these plants strung up along a wall, and they're all labeled invasive species.
Oh.
So it's the artist kind of commenting on this notion
Like
of
that.
who are we as one species to tell another species that it's invasive, and of course it gets into these issues of migration and immigration.
Okay, I have a question. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm assuming because the courtyard this is not intended as a pun, is so central to the gardener, I'm assuming she was like wildly into the sort of intersection of nature and art.
Was.
She
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
So is that part of the reason this thing is here?
Isabella Stewart Gardner definitely intended to have that courtyard there and have plants be
one
central.
of the most gorgeous
It
places
is one
to
of the
go,
most- it's so
especially
beautiful.
like in February when the weather's so miserable out. You go in there and you feel so nourished.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I used to feel until Jim broke up with me in the courtyard.
Then we had a fabulous dinner at the restaurant. What's that called? G?
Yeah,
Whatever it is.
No hard feelings.
Okay, but I'm
No hard
interrupting you.
feelings.
Finish up here. What do you want to tell us?
So you'll find a number of other different artists. There's one extraordinary piece. It's called Antoine's Organ, and when you walk into the main contemporary gallery space, you find this giant piece by Rashid Johnson, this giant sculpture that has 285 plants in it, 32 species, and you're hearing music when you enter this gallery, and then all of a sudden you realize there's a pianist in the middle of this sculpture, and there are Berkeley students and NEC students who come each day to play, and it's all part of
that's pretty
this somewhat
great.
also autobiographical piece, because there are videos that are playing, there are books that reference Rashid Johnson's own life. Let me mention one other piece by Ackroyd and Harvey. It's called Photographic Photosynthesis. This is extraordinary. They've created these portraits out of grass by leaving certain levels and certain amounts of the grass within the sun so that you have different shading to get a portrait. Jim is rolling
No,
his
I'm not
eyes
rolling my
because
eyes. I got to see it done. I'm going to go. I'm going to go.
I'll show you pictures because I took
Okay,
pictures.
fine.
Yeah.
Oh, you took pictures yourself?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't mow
You have
it
anything
down,
else to
Jim.
say or what? I'm not mocking them at all. I just have a hard
No, I
time.
said don't mow it.
Don't mow what? Oh, the grass.
Don't mow
That's
the
actually a
grass.
good line. It's a delayed reaction, but that was a really
That's
good
okay.
line. Thank you.
Okay.
Do you have anything more to say or what?
I do have something else to say.
What is that?
Help us break even.
Oh, well, obviously, Jamie texted that to you. 'cause
My
there's
phone has
no
been
way-
upside down
That
on
is
my
the biggest pile
desk
of crap.
the entire time.
That was the name of my store.
Hubie, help us break even.
I heard you the first time. That was the name of my store.
Lori's watching on YouTube. You know
Yeah.
what she says? She loves the
Casual
casually
le-
dressed Jared.
Capital letters. How about the
and
next
Mara
person?
Z on YouTube says, I like Jared's shirt.
Oh, thank
so
you.
there you go.
You know why? Because they're into a
bead.
death thing. That's what it
A
is.
death thing.
Jared's
Well, that's
wearing
okay.
a skull and feathers.
It's got a little bead in the eye.
Okay,
Did
fine.
you notice
Actually,
the
it does.
texture
I
and
noticed
detail?
that. Okay, we don't know.
I don't
know
get
about
what
that.
help us break even means.
That was the name of my store. My partners and I, you didn't know the name of the damn store?
Now that-
Hubie,
okay.
help us break even. The notion was
Very clever.
to help us break even.
Okay. Very
Jesus.
good. All right.
And did you, Hubie?
We made a lot of money.
Did you?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
had unlike the band that was here before, we didn't get along after about 2 months.
Yeah.
As soon as we started making
Can't
money, it
imagine
was
why.
all over, by the way.
It's just like
I was a little overbearing in the relationship
Okay.
with my partners. I may have been.
You were a little
just
overbearing.
a tad, I was.
What a shock.
Well,
I may have been the cause of the breakup.
At least they
Can we
lasted a
move
few
on
months.
here? What's that?
I was minutes into my relationship with Jim at the Gardner when
That's
he
right.
was with me.
Minutes. I tell you.
Jared, it was a pleasure.
That's why I get the Medal of Honor. Do I not get the Medal of Honor? 20 years?
do.
Yeah.
20 years?
You know what
I'm
you're going
saying?
to get?
20 that feels like 50.
By the way, you don't need to applaud that crap. Thank you. It's not necessary.
Okay. Jared Bowen is GBH.
You know what you're going to get?
Executive
A plant from the Gardner Museum.
Thank you.
That's what you're going to get.
Jared Bowen is GBH Executive Arts Editor.
Jesus.
And it was treated very poorly by Jim in the Gardner Museum. It's a sad story.
He wouldn't have
By the way,
watched the video. He
in
wouldn't
all
hold,
seriousness,
he wouldn't hold my hand, remember?
it is still
That's right.
online, and Azita Garamani, our buddy, produced this whole thing. It is really, it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's-
Check it out. Mandate Jared and Jim.
Was that when the
at
woman sat in
Gardner-
your lap at the... That was when...
No, that
that
was
was a
a different
different
one.
day.
Yeah.
That was, what was the name of that thing?
Meow meow.
We go to Meow Meow. It's a burlesque act. Where's she from?
Australia or New
Australia,
Zealand?
whatever. So I'm sitting on the aisle because obviously I need space, and Jared's sitting next to me. And if Jared's sitting next to you, as you've heard 1,000 times, you're
Can't
not allowed to eat
No, can't eat.
during the play.
That's right.
So part of the deal, which he did not tell me, and she's an international star, is she walks around as part of her act and asks members of the audience to undress her.
That's right.
And who does she come to first?
Jim, who wouldn't?
How did I handle that?
You broke out into a sweat, and, and you refused.
And by the way, she was rather disgusted. We interviewed her for a thing we did, and she was rather appalled with my non-participation.
Who could blame her?
Exactly.
And then she crowd surfed away, remember that?
She did.
She
actually
crowd surfed
did.
away and said, Jared.
Okay, goodbye. See you
Okay.
later. Thank you very much.
Jared Bowen, once again.
What was her
GBH
name again?
Executive
Meow meow.
Meow, I
Arts
said that.
editor.
Meow, meow, that's right.
Coming up, Boston Globe Love Letters columnist and podcast host Meredith Goldstein going to talk about relationships. Did 20-somethings move in too soon together? Should you shave the stash or shouldn't you shave the stash when your loved one is nauseated by it? Prenuptials or not? We have a lot of complicated discussions up next. Meredith Vieira.
Oh my God!
I did it
I mean,
again.
how many years are you going to do this?
Meredith Goldstein from the Boston
You couldn't even get through it once.
Meredith Vieira has obviously lived in my brain for about 35
It's like
years. I can't get
unbelievable.
away from her. She's like Donald Trump. Okay, you're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. I'm Mark Regan, Jim Browdy. We're broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at facebook.com/GBH News, youtube.com/GBH News. A lot of people writing in. They missed the Elizabeth Warren interview. Go to youtube.com/GBH News. Scroll back. Tuesday, the governor will be with us from noon to 1. Maura Healey will be here for Ask the Governor. And Friday, we are really looking forward to meeting the new general manager of the T. He'll be with us live at the library, Philip Ang. We're joined now by Meredith. I'm sorry, what's your last name?
Not Vieira, but I do, you know.
What is your, it's Goldstein, right?
Goldstein.
Goldstein. Meredith Goldstein, she's the relationship columnist with Boston Globe. And Marjorie never stops talking about this podcast, like enough already.
Well,
the Love
that's
Letters
the irony.
podcast.
I
Hi,
have
Meredith,
an
how are
intense
you?
relationship in the paper and in the podcast with you, Meredith Goldstein. Meredith Vieira, I met once, like...
We did an event with her.
We did an event with her, but I met her once when I was a kid, and I don't know why
Well,
she's still in my
that's
head.
sad. Okay, fine.
But forget about her. We want to get on to you. And let's play a little song here. This is a clip. 1989 Indigo
Love this
Girls
song.
song, Closer to Fine. Here it is.
I love this song. I really love this song.
Okay. So there's a connection here to Meredith Goldstein.
To Meredith Goldstein.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, no, but because you talked
Because you
about
wrote,
it.
you wrote about this.
So yeah, this is, and there is a connection also to writing an advice column and hosting a podcast about it, and this song also, which is that, and it's perfect to be here on a day that Jeff Edgers was here talking about Sinead O'Connor,
yeah.
because I have to believe that the music I listened to growing up pretty much formed a lot of my philosophies about dating and romance and marriage. And I have to say, relating to what Jeff spoke about, Sinead O'Connor was my first live concert. I was about 11 or 12. I was dragged by my sister, and I remember looking at the stage and thinking, there's a whole different way to be a woman in the world. And my favorite Sinead O'Connor songs are about love, about romance. She has a song, Last Day of Our Acquaintance,
Yes.
which is about divorce. So there I was as a preteen thinking about these issues. What does it feel like to get divorced? What does it feel like for my parents? So similarly, the Indigo Girls, like, kind of made my brain what it is a little bit. And I'm sitting there seeing Barbie, as one does if one can get a ticket. It's not that easy. And this Indigo Girls song, which was in the trailer for the film, comes up multiple times in the film. If you've seen it, you know. If you don't, it is a character in this film, I think. And when I saw the movie, I thought, oh, like, what a brilliant gift for younger people, too, to learn this song, right? That is so much about, like, exploring the meaning of life and relationships. And the Indigo Girls, all of their songs, a lot of them are about also what does it mean to be a person? What does it mean to be a person connected to other people? So the first thing I did was call their publicist and say, can I please talk to the Indigo Girls? What does it feel like to suddenly have this classic song on the Barbie soundtrack?
And when you did speak to one of them, which one did you speak to?
I spoke to Emily.
When you spoke to Emily, do I remember correctly, she didn't know that their song was anything beyond the trailer?
So I thought she was going to tell me, Greta Gerwig, the director, called me and asked. I thought she was going to tell me this beautiful story. And she's like, well, we got a call from a person who knew a person who knew a person. They want to use it. They thought about saying no because they thought a Barbie movie could be really stupid. And then they realized it was Greta Gerwig, and they were like, well, wait a minute, it's going to be real good. They said yes. She went to the movies without knowing if it had even made the cut of the movie. And imagine sitting there and watching this film with a bunch of strangers and realizing that this song you wrote so many years ago at the start of their career was hit, and looking around, like no one in the audience knowing there's an Indigo Girl in your audience, right? She just didn't know. And so I was fascinated by the fact that she said they actually had gone in to play for, I believe it was the studio, to see if there were any other songs that people want to license and use, because so many of their songs are so emotional, and now Brandy Carlisle has covered it for an extended soundtrack.
Was it in your piece you mentioned the Kate Bush thing where no one ever heard of her for years, and all of a sudden, Stranger Things.
Stranger Things puts a Kate Bush song, Running Up That Hill, which is like a song that I knew as a kid, right? And then you've got, it was on Kiss 108. It was on like top 40 stations.
And then she gets in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I think, after
I think so too.
the song had
it's like
its
we
second
remember,
life.
right?
Yeah.
And that's why I'm hoping, like, you know, for
They're great.
these acts that they get the second round of listeners because they're good songs.
You know, they were July 4th a couple of years ago on the promenade.
Yeah,
You know
that's
that?
right.
They
That's
were
right.
great.
So anyway,
In any case, quickly, did you like Barbie or you didn't like Barbie?
I liked Barbie. I think.
Oh, you didn't love
I know.
Barbie.
Listen, I loved watching Barbie. I think it poses a lot of questions about gender that it doesn't answer because who could answer it, right? It's the kind of movie where I'm still thinking about it a few weeks later. But yeah.
Okay.
Who is she again?
She's Meredith Goldstein.
She is,
Creator
from the
of
Boston
Love
Globe
Letters.
and
Yeah,
Love-
the
yeah,
column and the podcast.
Thank you.
This is a clip from one of your Love Letters podcasts. This is an episode about prenups, which apparently was inspired by a conversation
How proud are we?
we had on this show. Here is a little bit of sound from that conversation.
Marjorie was like, hold on, no, prenups are smart. They are not some big admission that a relationship is likely to fail. For what it's worth, I was with Marjorie on this one.
Where are you on the prenup? I have to say, I've never been able to wrap my arms around the notion. You say, I love you, I want to spend the rest of my life with you. He's and by good. the way, sign on the dotted line.
Do I think there's a need to have a prenup if you're 20 and have nothing? Probably
No.
not.
When you're
but
older, second marriage.
It makes a lot of sense.
But you did a great podcast on this, and this is what I love about your podcast. You really get into the intimacies and the details of people's relationships about a couple that it was not a second marriage. It was a woman who'd had a lot of, was involved for some reason with a guy with a coke problem, and he was homeless, and he was taking her money and stuff. And then she finally gets married. Tell us how the prenuptial agreement helped her settle.
Well, I need to thank you at first because having the conversation you just heard really made me want to prove Jim wrong. You know, it's like a thing to do.
Like
it's
everybody else.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, thank you.
So I went off in search of, well, what's an example of a prenup that is romantic? Can we think of it in that way? And a man wrote in and said, this gave us a structure to feel safe. This gave a structure for my wife to feel safe, that we could feel like every day we decide to show up for each other as a choice, and that we would leave safely with enough resources no matter what. And these are not rich people. These are not people protecting some massive whatever. They basically fell madly in love, wanted to get married, and she was saying, well, the past relationships I've had, like I don't feel that I could be comfortable. And the prenup gave them a way to feel like every day it's up to them. Show up for me if you want to, and they've been showing up for each other for a decade.
Yeah.
So it was like the most romantic talk about a prenup I'd ever heard.
Yeah, and it was a great telling of their romance too, and you had them, the real people, talking to you about their romance, and it was just great.
So what happened? Wait a second. I'm not done yet with this. So what happens when they do that prenup, and when neither have a lot of resources? They both do whatever they love in life. One does incredibly well financially. One doesn't do so well financially. Are you worried about that impact on the relationship down the line?
The cool thing about the prenup, right, is that it's not, it gets more specific, right? Where you might live in a state that's a no-fault state where everybody just sort of divides in half. They get to say, well, we want to make sure this person has that, and I have this, and they have that. So you can actually say, well, if this person out earns, but that everybody would still be okay, that there'd still be percentages, right? So I think what they were saying was we get to make a bespoke document that is just for us. So it is great in that way, where if you just leave it to chance, it could wind up that one person has far more than
I know you're not with me on this. Isn't there a piece of you, though, emotionally, that feels this is not quite right? Honestly.
No, because I think and I can't believe that the advice columnist is saying this to you, but we get very romantic about marriage, but it's a contract. It's like a business contract. You know, it's your family's a business when you put it on paper like that. So we put on dresses and we do all these amazing things, but it's like a legal document. So you have to treat it that way.
Well, but you know, it's not just that, Mr. Romantic over there.
Yeah.
It's that the big issues in marriage, a lot of them are around money, which is what your whole season is about. People don't like to talk about money. They feel, or it's about sex, or it's about how you're going to raise the kids. And people leap into marriages all the time without really talking to each other about money, particularly. Well, they probably talk about sex because they're all having sex before they get married, but the money part doesn't really come in.
You'd be surprised. They're having it and not talking about it, I think, sometimes too.
Okay.
But I think also, if you don't have the comfort and love to talk about money in a prenup, you might not have it to talk about other difficult things. So it's like a good test. Is it the most romantic thing to talk about? Probably not.
So why shouldn't you have a contract about everything then?
Well, I mean, because you might not be one contract for another, right? Like this is if you're going to own something with someone, if you're starting a business with someone, you kind of want to put some things down on paper. So it's not for like a date, but it is for well, if I'm promising something to you, what is it specifically?
What kind of feedback did you get on this thing?
Great. I mean, I think
that people were with you.
Yeah, and I didn't pose it as like you're either pro or con or this or that, but I think people did say, oh, I felt gross about my own and now I don't, because it isn't about thinking I'm really going to divorce this person.
Okay, let's go to the mustache.
Jackie
Can we
have a contract, a sex contract without Onassis that you only had to sleep with him once a month or something?
I mean,
I don't know if that was really true.
That is not something I'm an expert on.
Yeah, that's the story. And who could blame her, really? Who could blame her?
One of the best clues ever in a New York Times puzzle, 3-letter answer, JFK's successor.
I'm afraid to get the answer.
Ari.
A-R-I.
Oh.
Everybody put LBJ.
Yeah.
It didn't work. Thank you very much, Margaret.
So Gen Z.
Yes.
Between the pandemic and the high cost of housing, they're moving in too quickly.
So there is a conversation about why do we move in with each other, right? Especially, in cities. Is it because we're madly in love, or is it because we don't want to live with roommates anymore and the rent is very high? The truth is, I think, it's more socially acceptable to live with someone when you're not married, obviously. And you do make choices based on money. I think there are a lot of spouses who probably would live next door to each other if they could afford it.
That's right. That was the great line of Parker's. What was his first name? The great mystery writer? Spencer.
Robert Parker. Robert Parker. Yeah. So
didn't they live in separate houses?
I mean, like you can have a little, deck you can walk across.
But who lived on opposite sides of Central Park?
Well, they weren't married.
I know, but who lived?
Mia Farrow and Woody Allen.
That's right.
Yeah. And
Worked
Catherine
out really
Hepburn
well,
said the
didn't
same
it?
thing.
Yeah. So I think now with everything so astronomical, people are saying, well, I guess we'll move in. But so there's a constant talk about, does it make the relationship fail?
Yeah. Well, you know what I think is really fascinating? I got divorced. I read a lot of books about divorce. And one of the things I learned was that a lot of people back into marriage because they're living together. Mm-hmm. And it is really hard to get out of it when you've got all your stuff together, which is maybe why you should think seriously before you move in with somebody, because it can just be the easiest thing, path of least resistance. Then you end up getting married, and you never should have gotten married.
Everything's always easier when you have money, right? If you can afford to move out, you can afford to move out. If you can't, it's not easy either way.
Yeah. So. Well, what was the one with the woman that had to get divorced and had to make all the plans about how expensive it was to get divorced.
An episode about a woman who got divorced and was broke because she had to move, and she did a registry. It was basically like a divorce registry, and people bought her a new toaster and a new...
She's a dope. She should have had a prenup. Do you know what I mean? So,
exactly.
So I'm totally in favor of prenups. Can we move to my favorite of our topics today?
Okay.
The mustache story, Marjorie. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, this was a great one. So you should set this up. You were doing a podcast with the new Ask Prudence. Or is it Ask
Dear
Prudence?
Dear Prudence. So Sinéad Desmond Harris, who's wonderful, and I knew her before she did this column.
Because Margot Howard used to be.
One of our favorite
I have a
people.
I have a good streak of knowing the Prudences, right?
Yeah.
And so Sinéad had me on her podcast. She gets this letter from someone whose significant other had grown a mustache. Kind of a funny one. And he wanted to keep it as they are about to get married. And so suddenly the photos are going to have this thing that hopefully isn't permanent for the sake of the letter writer. And so Janae and I really had a fun time debating whether a person, it's okay to look at somebody and say, can you please get rid of that? Like, don't have that on your face. Which led to a greater conversation about facial hair in general.
Yeah, well, you see, I thought the man here was terribly unfair. She fell in love with him. He had no mustache. Then he grows a mustache.
It's like a bait and switch
which
kind
really
of thing.
does change the way you look.
Well.
And now, not only is she very unattracted by this mustache, he's now saying, we got to get married with it. He doesn't care that she hates it.
Wow. Right, and I was also, she and I both talked about what is the gender imbalance to this? If it's a heterosexual relationship and a man looks at a woman and says, change your appearance. Or,
Exactly right.
That's right.
It's a very loaded thing, and yet here we were saying this man needs to shave. I would only say that sometimes I do think it's okay to understand that a partner fell for you in a certain way, or obviously our bodies change, we age, right? There's a very big difference between I want to control how you look and accepting someone as they grow up. I will say, it made me think of Mark Shanahan and I, Mark works for the Globe.
Yes.
Some of you may know. we had caricatures of ourselves done based on photos, and his was done based on like a goatee he had for like 12 minutes.
I remember the goatee.
And he would just think about, why did I have that facial hair when my legacy was it's like he never has it, and yet there's this picture of him in the Globe with this very unattractive facial hair forever.
You revealed in this podcast that your beau had a beard.
Has a beard. So I met my significant other. He has a beard.
Did he have a beard when you met him?
Well, he did, and I have said I think I would be very unhappy if the beard were to go away.
Wow.
And we actually learned there are a lot of dating terms that pop up, like, ghosting, love bombing, right? There's actually a term called shave ducking.
Shave
ducking is when you don't know if you may be attracted to the person, or maybe it's just their incredible beard.
I have to write that down.
And so he and I would joke, and when I met him, he had a beard, but usually in March, as things get warmer, he has a big shave. And then he would grow out the beard throughout the fall and then be bearded again. And I was like, well, guess what? This summer you'll be sweating through that beard. So
did he do
I don't
it?
know. No, he's had the beard the whole time I've been with him.
That's pretty loving.
He's missed 2 seasons of a beautiful shave.
Now, wait a minute. You just said that this is, that if you told a woman to not cut her hair
I
or
know
lose
what I
weight-
said.
That was them, and this is her.
Okay.
I mean, come on.
Because I think you're right. It's a different face.
Yes, and it is. I'm also very. It's funny also that you had Jeff Edgers on, because he used to sit next to me at work for so many years. Yes, and one day I was like, who is that? And it was because he had taken his glasses off. And I was like not being able to recognize. So for me, these like basic visual cues, I guess, are important. I was like, put your glasses back on.
Can we get back to the boyfriend?
Yes.
What was the end of the sentence? Was the end of the sentence or else?
Am I going to break up with him
Well,
if
I'm
he's
asking
shaved?
you.
No, but
You'd be very unhappy? What'd you say?
Well, all I said was, I find you very attractive with that beard. And that was sort of the end
That's
of the
not
sentence.
all you said. Did you say more?
No, I made a face with it. It was like but I think also he wants to be found attractive.
Exactly.
Yeah. So listen, we all make negotiations, and he's not unhappy with his beard. He's very proud of his beard. It's just it changed the routine. So it was a great conversation because it made us think about gender and expectations and what we're allowed to ask for of someone else's. If he were uncomfortable, if he were itchy, if he, of course.
But but answer your own question about if he said to you in a loving way, I love you in that blue dress.
Yeah.
And frankly, I can't stand the other crap you wear. I mean, and so you do what you want.
The
but I
dress is an easier fix.
Then
But
I know.
Obviously, if he was like, I am desperate to shave this beard off, I'd be like, go do it.
You would be, okay.
Yeah, for sure. But it's like, also, if you don't mind the beard,
Okay.
I like the beard.
Okay,
How
fine.
many men have said to women, let your hair grow? I love
that's a good
longer
one.
hair. That's a very common one. Don't cut your hair short.
Yeah, and of course, there's a lot wrapped up in that, right?
Yeah.
Like what do we need women to look like? And it's, we are nowhere, and we were talking about Sinead O'Connor again, of like what women need to look like as they age. There's a lot more expectations than there are on men. There just are, right? So it is much more loaded.
You know what the key to the whole thing with the beard is?
What?
Prenup. I'm telling you. Now think about it.
If the beard
for a
comes off,
minute.
you get
Exactly.
nothing.
I'm
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, I love your podcast. I love your column and I love your podcast. And you really learn a lot about relationships. I mean, you must be an expert now in your own relationship
Well,
now that you've talked to so many people about theirs.
There is a man who would probably like a springtime shave who might say I'm not. And
Can we get this guy? Can we actually get the guy in here?
He likes to be very anonymous, but no, I am very grateful because it's a job that teaches me all day long.
When's he available? No, I'm serious.
Okay.
I mean, how much would people love?
They'd love
huge
it.
fans of her.
Okay.
How much would they love to talk to the guy without you here?
That's right.
We're going
That's
to book
right.
Jamie. Book him.
So
I
what's
met
your-
him. Whoever he is, book him.
So what's your podcast for Tuesday?
2 writers who are married and on strike. 2 WGA writers who are double married because not only are they married, they are also writing partners. So they talk about not just the writer's strike and what it means, but what is it like to be married to someone in your profession when the profession itself is a mess.
That's brilliant.
This is like
I love that.
like travel industry people in 2020. Like what happens when all the sources of income go away and you say, oh, we can't adjust for each other because we are the same.
Oh God, that's horrible.
I mean, we know there are a bunch of journalists. I'm constantly surrounded by Globe people who are married, and that's often how we meet people, like sharing that interest. But these 2 people are so forthcoming. and they speak on Tuesday about how this has affected their marriage, what they're doing, who's helping them, and how it works.
Can I also make I rarely make a recommendation about an interview we did a few days ago. I thought what Jay Leno had to say, was it yesterday? When was it, 2 days ago?
I don't know, 2
What
days
Jay
ago.
Leno had to say about
The
workers
writers.
and the writers on strike was so beautiful and so unexpected. And I don't mean that in a critical way. I just didn't know we were going to get into that. You should check it out.
And he
That is
paid-
where again? On youtube.com/GBH News. It's at gbhnews.com. Is one of those things. Thank you very much. Check it out.
Yeah,
Find
he
it.
made a lot of money, obviously, hosting the Tonight Show when the writers were on strike previous
Years
to
ago,
that.
yeah.
And they were going to fire them all. He paid their salaries.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was pretty generous guy.
gbhnews.org or Best of BPR podcast. Thank you, Jamie.
Okay, Meredith
Great to see you,
Goldstein.
Meredith.
Great to see you too.
Meredith
Wonderful
Goldstein.
to see you.
Thank you very,
Fabulous.
very much.
Some great beards in your live audience.
Yeah,
I'm just
that's
saying.
right. And
Do
you're
we?
gonna- and you're
Yeah.
gonna-
Oh, we actually do.
Yeah, you do.
That's
It's a
right.
good-looking crowd.
Yeah, you got to check out the online and in the Globe and the Love Letters podcast, which I absolutely love. We've been speaking with Meredith
You just
Goldstein.
you go to Google, you search prenup, and then you find everything you need to see.
That's right. She is a relationship columnist for the Boston Globe, and again, the host of the Love Letters podcast, new one coming out on Tuesday. Okay, coming up, we just talked about this with Meredith. Now we're going to ask you, what are the rules about changing your appearance when you're dating someone? What if they love their mustache, but you can't stand it? Or vice versa, you grow a beard, but your partner hates it. Weigh in. 877-301-8970 is the number to call about your mustache, beard, or other appearance problems with your significant other. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, broadcasting from the Boston Public Library.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library. Streaming at facebook.com/GBH News, youtube.com/GBH News. Tuesday, we'll be back at the library with the governor from 12 to 1. Friday, Phil Lang, new GM of the T, will join us here too. Sadly, we're short on time, so I think you're going to want to get in on this. And what appears to be a revival of what we've done a couple of times is really not Am I the A-hole from yesterday's show? We want to open the phone and text lines with the question we just discussed with Meredith. What are the rules around growing facial hair, removing facial hair, whatever appearance things with or without your partner's permission? Is it beard fishing to start dating someone with a beard and then finding out you don't really like their face without the beard or mustache? What about growing one after you've been dating, or worse, years into the marriage? To make the question more simple, is what right if a person in a relationship says, I don't like what you're wearing, the way you look, your whatever, I like the other thing, and is pretty persistent about it, and the other person likes a lot what they're doing, their mustache, their beard, and refuses to change, who is the a-hole, Marjorie Egan?
Well, in the situation of this mustache with the wedding coming up, the guy, absolutely. She hates it. He's going to marry her. He hates
likes it. It's his body.
Yeah, well, doesn't he want her to find him attractive? I mean, I think if you continue with the mustache, it may be a pretty sad situation.
Okay,
Jim.
honey, I know we're getting married in a week. I don't even like the beard. you should lose 5 pounds too. I'd be a lot happier if you weighed 5 pounds.
That's totally
less.
different.
Why is it different?
Because everybody wants to lose 5 pounds.
Well,
and it's very difficult to lose 5
pounds less
It's
when
not
I
hard
met
to
you.
shave a mustache off, Jim.
Do you really believe you should tell somebody who likes part of their appearance they should eliminate part of their appearance because you don't like it as much?
It's a bait and switch.
877.
You knew him for years with no mustache, and all of a sudden he sneaks it in right before the wedding.
301.
It's outrageous.
8970.
Dave in the car has an opinion on
What
this.
does he say?
If I want to grow my mustache, my wife will always remind me that I look younger without it, so it goes away. If my wife wants to grow her mustache, I've got nothing to say about that.
By the way, if you state an opinion, it's one thing. And it sounds like Meredith was very sweet and kind to her partner. But when you press the issue, you're not trouble with that either? If you really are insistent about it, you raise the issue. The guy with the mustache says, I like it, I'm keeping it. As far as I'm concerned, that's the end of the discussion.
Okay.
You tried, you made your point, move on.
Okay, I don't know. We'll see what people have to say about this. I mean, I think a mustache is different.
Well, whatever it is, a beard, a mustache, long sideburns, whatever it is.
Long sideburns.
Well, whatever. That was 100 years ago. Whatever it is. Andy Anatko's got long sideburns. So
He does have long sideburns.
Okay,
That's
fine.
right. And we'll see what his girlfriend thinks about those sideburns. Teresa from Spencer, what do you think?
Hey, Teresa, what's your position? So to speak.
Hi. I have a couple of takes on this. In
Please.
general, I agree with you, Jim.
Thank you.
Let people be as they are. Love them or leave them. Like, stop being so superficial.
Exactly.
And secondly, like, where do these norms come from? I'm a straight woman, happily married, and I don't shave. I don't shave anything anywhere. And, like, talk about a sexist notion that's so instilled in a culture that no one even questions it. Like, whenever I'm putting my opinion on how someone looks, I think it's inappropriate and wrong, and my husband can do whatever he wants. And if I don't like it, I'll tell him. If he's not willing to work with me, then a different conversation might have to happen.
Did you hear that?
That's how I see it.
If he doesn't want to work with me, she doesn't want to shave. If the husband wasn't happy with it, see you later. Not quite literally, but that seems to be what she's saying.
Well, you don't want to break up over shaving your legs, I guess. But I get what you're saying. I mean, if he doesn't like it, but I don't know. It seems like if you had shaved your legs dutifully
Teresa's gone.
for the entire time of your courtship, and a month before the wedding, you suddenly decide you
What
want
if
to
she
shave.
didn't? What if she didn't, and then she decides, I really like the way I look that way. I like the way I feel, and I like it a lot. I know you're not crazy about it, but I really like it. What happens there?
I don't know. Could be the game changer, Jim.
It could be.
A lot of people are very superficial, like me.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm very superficial.
That's a very good
James in Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
We're
Hi,
huge
James.
in Oshkosh. Hi, James. What's up?
What a pleasure to be on with Marjorie and Jim this time.
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to say that I couldn't disagree with Meredith Vieira more. I think that... that was a joke. I
It's
think
good that we
if
got
you
it.
fall in
Thank
love
you.
with someone, it should be deeper than facial hair or leg hair or that dress that you saw her in that one night. Yeah, if I get in a relationship with you and I fall in love with you and you're 120 pounds and then a year later you're, 210 pounds, hopefully I'm still sexually attracted, but I hope that people can be shallow, or what's the opposite of shallow, deep enough to still care.
You're a beautiful
And as far as men
person.
with beards-
Sorry, James. Go ahead.
Sorry, no.
you go.
As far as men with beards, have you ever seen a guy who's had a deep beard, shave it? They're hiding something.
Amen.
Well,
you have a story,
okay.
don't you?
Oh, James, I'm so
great
glad
call.
you called, because I remember that when I used to work at a certain place in Boston, there was a guy that everybody thought was really cute and adorable. And one day, and he had a beard and a mustache. And one day he came in without the beard and the
happened?
mustache. Well, he had no chin.
Yeah.
And the beard had covered up the chinless problem. So the women in the office gathered around and said, "Get the beard right back. We were all hoping you'd ask us out on a date, and not anymore."
Jamie, can I read this, or this is not? Okay, Jamie just wrote us a note. My parents are trying to organize one of those cheesy full family photos this weekend. My mother and father might blow up the whole thing. He's recently grown a beard, and he loves it. No one else in the family likes it. My mom, most vocally against it, says it's not how she wants him to be photographed for family memories for the grandkids. Deadline is Sunday. Beard is still there. Photo might not happen because my mom is protesting. That is pretty intense.
So what's the answer then? What should be done here,
What?
Jim? You're
Well,
Solomonic.
your view is the father should shave the beard. That's
yeah, he should.
ridiculous.
That's what I think.
Totally
Jamie's
ridiculous.
shaking his head. Yeah, you know what? Some women don't want to kiss men with beards and mustaches. They're worried about all the leftover food in the mustache. You know
Well, I
what
don't
mean?
think that's really the issue in this relationship.
Well, I don't know if
Is
it's a
that the
relationship
issue in
in
the
this year.
relationship? No.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Tom Selleck. He looks good with the mustache.
He does.
Yeah, everybody else can shave.
But see, that's
since
not
he's
really the
texter.
issue. I mean, you shouldn't be deciding that Tom Selleck is fine with a mustache and your partner is not. If your partner's, I really don't get your position on this. If they're happy with what they got, then you got to be happy with it too.
You know, listen to you.
Yeah.
I mean, when we do these stories about who's more superficial, men or women in relationships, it is like 90 to 10 on men. I mean, men will date anything if she's good looking enough.
Excuse me?
That's true. So all these stories about women won't date people that don't disagree with their values, that they're Trumpsters and they're not a Trumpster. They won't date them. But in all these surveys, men don't care. They care if she's good looking, Jim.
Yeah.
So I think there could be a lot of dysfunction in the household if a woman did something that was really upsetting to the husband in terms of her looks.
Al on the road, you're next on Boston Public Radio. We're talking, well, you know what we're talking about. Go ahead, Al.
Hey, guys.
Hey. Oh, Al, hi.
I've been married for, I think going on 20 years now.
Yeah.
And it's pretty simple. If my wife doesn't like something, she can tell me that she doesn't like it, tell me I'm an idiot for doing whatever I'm doing.
Sure.
I'm only allowed to compliment her.
How would she feel if she was listening to this call, Al?
Well, I'll probably tell her about it. But quick little story. So I was dating my wife for about 10 years before we got married.
Oh.
And then on our wedding day, she was a redhead. And I didn't know that was coming. So, I mean, that look of surprise on that.
Wait a second. She dyed her hair red on the day of the wedding?
Like the day before. I didn't see her the day before.
Wow.
It's the only time she's ever had red hair in her whole life.
Wow.
What was she trying to say? What was the statement there, Al?
I have no idea. I'm not allowed to talk about it.
Apparently not.
Well, you've been married for 20 years, so something must be going on there that's working out well.
That's an amazing story. Al, thank you for the call. We appreciate it.
Julian Quincy says, my husband hates my hair curly and I hate straightening it in the summer with the heat. It's awful. We get so angry over it.
Okay, so what should she do? You know, you were a total fraud. I know who just said in her ear, dump him? Zoe said,
That's right.
dump him.
Dump him. That's right. Okay,
Thank
I'm
you,
with you, Zoe. That's
Appreciate
right. Get rid of him.
There's an honest woman.
MK in the car. Thank you for calling.
Hi, MK. What's up?
Oh, hi.
Hi.
This is my first time calling.
Oh,
and
my God.
I think
Go ahead.
this conversation is absolutely ridiculous.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Jim, I definitely agree with you.
Thank you.
I think it is absolutely ridiculous that anybody gets to give permission on how another individual presents himself.
Exactly.
You gotta be who you are, and part of that is how you want to present yourself to the world.
Yeah.
And I cannot believe people with boyfriends, girlfriends, or marriages think that they have the right to even be angry about another person.
Amen, MK.
And how they want to present themselves. Ridiculous.
Now, MK, since this is the finest call of the week so far, how small-minded do you find Marjorie to be in this conversation?
And I love Marjorie, but honestly, yes.
Really?
It's okay.
What is wrong with her?
I do not agree with you at all.
Well, you can blame it on my mother, because when my father would come up and arrive at going out for dinner or a party or something down here, he would have a pair of plaid jacket on.
She sent him back?
With some horrible mismatched
She sent him
plans.
back?
Yeah, she said go. And you know what? She was right, because he could wear dressy clothes like a suit to work, but he couldn't do casual.
I got it.
You know what I mean?
I got
and
it.
she would send him back to change
Hey,
his clothes, and she
MK,
was right.
Can you make your second call on Monday, please? Can you do that? Thank you, MK. It was a great first call. I'm totally with you, and she's totally with me.
Yeah, sometimes you're saving someone from embarrassing themselves. You know what I mean?
Did he always go back and change the jacket?
He just always said the same thing. Don't worry, I'm with the program, man. I'm with the
And
program.
he went upstairs and changed
He changed
the
his
jacket?
clothes. He had no he couldn't do it. It was
Well, how come he looked
challenged.
fine in a suit then? I don't get it.
Because a suit is easy. You just buy a suit and you put on
it
a
on?
tie. Sometimes
do?
men wear horrible ties.
Yeah.
No, he did not know how to dress casually. Do we have time for one more? Valerie
We have
in Worcester?
30 seconds.
Hi, Valerie.
Hi. Hi, Valerie. 30 seconds.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can. Thank you for calling.
It's Mallory from Worcester. I've been married for 6 years, and 3 years ago, I Sinead O'Connor'd my hair and messed it all up.
Oh, and?
And my husband is a very smart man, so I know that he preferred it long. It used to be down to my waist, but he won't say so. He won't say that he preferred it long.
Well, that's beautiful. That is the perfect relationship. Mallory, thank you. Perfect way to end the show.
Okay, we have a couple of quick texts here. Am I the only one whose girlfriend took a pair of trimmers to my face while I was sleeping?
That's not true.
And then, Marjorie, thanks for bringing up kissing. My daughter broke up after she found out how it felt to kiss a man with a mustache.
Wow.
So there you go, Jim.
It's incredible
I'm telling you,
story.
it's raging in the hinterlands,
Thank
this
you very
battle
much.
over to shave or not to shave.
fine.
Okay, we are done. Thank you very much for listening. We have a new shorter podcast.
We do?
It is half hour instead of 24. No, it was 3 hours before. It wasn't 24 hours. But it's really a good
If you
one.
listen to 8 of them, it's 24 hours.
That's right. That's right.
A lot of people do that, by the way. They
You
just
can do
sit down
that.
for days
Yep.
at a time.
Tune in on Monday.
Okay,
Jared Bowen and Andrew Cabral are sitting in for Jim and I, who are the day off. They'll be speaking.
We're back Tuesday.
We're back Tuesday. We're going to talk with 2 local SAG-AFTRA actors who are impacted by this strike that's been going on and on.
Yeah.
Trenni Casey's going to be with us talking about sports. CNN's John King is going to be here Monday instead of Tuesday. And the Reverends Irene Monroe and Emma G. Price III will join us, as well as Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Young, who's got a great new podcast herself. What's it called?
Say More?
Say More.
Say
I think-
More.
Yep.
It is a great podcast.
Yeah, it's really good.
Really good.
We want to thank our crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, our engineer, John the Claw Parker, our executive producer, Jamie Bologna. Special thanks to the BPL team here today, Sai Patel, Evelyn Brito, and Colin Cockrell. I'm Marjorie Egan.
I'm Jim Browdy.
Thank you so much for
Thank
tuning
you all
in
for
today.
coming, by
Thank
the
you
way. We
people
really
who came down to the
appreciate
Boston
it. Thank
Public
you, everybody.
Library. Hope you have a great weekend, and hope you can tune in on Monday.
Bye.